Chapter 1661. An endless amount of unfamiliar aura spread out. The aura was sharp and murderous, and the blood-red aura permeated. Su-Yi looked at the completely red light, and a sharp and domineering feeling arose in his heart. Got it! Su-Yi roared in his heart. Su-Yi stood straight with his head held high, and with a majestic aura, he leaped towards the light. In an instant, Su-Yi was 13,000 meters away from the circle. On the broken sword cliff, the sky was filled with golden light from the dark clouds. Under the golden light, everyone's eyes were fixed on the changes on the light screen. Jun Haoyan has already been at 14,000 meters for a long time. Why hasn't he moved? Luo Wuya stroked his beard, puzzled. 13,000. Su-Yi has reached 13,000. Everyone rejoiced, as if their own disciple had entered. Everyone from the Imperial Heavenly Palace looked on in shock. Guyuan nodded and said, "No matter what, if Su-Yi can reach 13,000, the situation will turn around a little. Let's see if Su-Yi can pass the 15,000 mark and meet Palace Master Duanmu." Han Wulong thought. In the distance, the ordinary elders were pointing at the screen. One of the elders said to the screen, "Phew, it's so intense." Luckily, Fenger didn't get involved. "Elder Z, what did you say? Didn't Fenger participate too? I just don't know where he is." Nothing. The old man called Elder Z had a trace of awkwardness on his face as he laughed dryly. At 13,000 meters, Su-Yi could clearly feel the murderous energy seeping out from the terrifying whirlpool at the side. Compared to before, every 1,000 meters after 10,000 meters, the blood water would become thicker. It was no longer a place that an ordinary Origin Emperor could enter again. Su-Yi was full of doubts. The fierce and domineering elemental energy was spreading, but Su-Yi had already made it through the most important 12,000 meters. This kind of powerful elemental space was no longer a problem for Su-Yi. The deeper Su-Yi went, the stranger he felt. As he went deeper, Su-Yi said to the iron soulfish in his body, "Old Iron, do you think Duanmu Xiaoman knows about this?" It's hard to say. A woman's heart is like a needle at the bottom of the ocean. I don't know what she's thinking, but if she says she doesn't know, I won't believe it. The iron soulfish took deep breaths, as if he was in a vacuum. Since Duanmu Xiaoman's methods were heaven-defying, and she had chosen this place as the location of the Heavenly Soul competition, she definitely knew about it. As for why she allowed everyone to go deeper into this place, he didn't know. In a split second, Su-Yi suddenly recalled the time when they made the promise of 10,000 meters. Duanmu Xiaoman revealed an almost undetectable smile, and even said that if he survived, she would take him in as her disciple. Now that he thought about it, this woman was really scheming. Suddenly, Su-Yi felt a chill run down his spine. What did she mean by surviving? She probably didn't even think about who would survive. But what good is it to kill me? Do you want to drag everyone down with you? The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. The more he thought about it, the more confused he became. Su-Yi couldn't help but use the 100 steps of augmentation and peerless dragon flash. His speed was raised to the limit, and his body was filled with a fierce and domineering aura. The blood in his body began to boil. Su-Yi's eyes trembled as he said, "Duanmu Xiaoman, what are you trying to do?" 20,000 meters. Su-Yi had to go down. He had to get to the bottom of this. He had to find this old woman and ask her what she was trying to do. At this moment, along with the spread of a domineering and awe-inspiring aura, Su-Yi's body swept out like a lightning phantom. The space was filled with a steady stream of soul energy, and Su-Yi instantly reached the 14,000-meter circle of light. Whoosh! Su-Yi's sword-like eyebrows furrowed, and his face was resolute. He looked at the bright red circle of light, as if he would fall into it and fall into it. He took a deep breath and stomped down. Instantly, his vision turned red, and a fierce, murderous aura with a domineering soul energy collapsed around Su-Yi. When he opened his eyes again, he could hear two voices talking a few hundred meters away. "Zifeng, what are you trying to do?" On the other side, an extremely demonic voice rang in Su-Yi's ears. "Kiki, isn't this our eldest senior brother, Jun Haoyan? Not bad. You reached 15,000 meters in such a short time. How rare. Swim for me again. Swim. He could tell that the person speaking should be Zifeng, who was mentioned by the Imperial Palace's disciple. Jun Haoyan said in a serious and steady voice, "You're not bad either. To think that a disciple of the Archk Late could reach here." Zifeng seemed to be a little angry, and his anger turned into laughter. "Impudent. It's all thanks to your master that you could reach here. It's all thanks to me that your master allowed you to reach here. Idiot. You self-righteous fool. You and your master are both sanctimonious bastards." When Zhuqiufeng was mentioned, Jun Haoyan was instantly unable to sit still, and his voice had obviously become much louder. "Zifeng, say that again. I'll kill you right now if you say another word about my master." Bang! His soul energy spread out, and the entire space was instantly shattered by the soul energy pressure. Amidst the surging winds, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled behind Jun Haoyan, and it was as if a god had descended from the heavens. A pair of enormous tiger eyes suddenly materialized, and golden light flashed with coldness. Jun Haoyan's killing intent filled the air, and his battle intent soared. And then he said to Zifeng faintly, "Before I kill Su Yi, I'll give you one last chance to apologize for what you said earlier." Bang! Su Yi found a place to hide, and when he probed with his spiritual sense, he could sense a figure that was covered in blood and was facing Jun Haoyan. It was Zifeng, who was rumored by the Imperial Palace's disciples. Zifeng raised his palm, and a huge wave of blood surged up, instantly condensing into a huge handprint, like the hand of a demon. The surrounding space instantly shattered inch by inch, and the space trembled. It directly slammed toward Jun Haoyan, covering the sky and the sun. The vast and immortal blood-colored palm shattered the void, and the space instantly caved in. The entire huge circle seemed to be suppressed by a huge ball. The crushing pressure increased sharply, and the bloody wind, along with the boundless pressure, instantly pressed down on Jun Haoyan. In an instant, Jun Haoyan's expression changed drastically, and he instantly froze. The huge tiger-shaped remnant soul behind him didn't show any weakness, and with a flash of golden light, it collided with the huge handprint. Bang! Bang! Golden light glistened, and the blood energy was vast and mighty. The huge tiger body behind Jun Haoyan suddenly stretched out, and it waved its claws from afar. The bloody handprint instantly became like a divine palm, grabbing the tiger body and remnant soul and slamming it heavily towards the high ground on both sides. Boom! The space trembled, and the entire high ground instantly turned into ruins. The handprint turned into countless tiny fragments that hit Jun Haoyan, and sticky blood flowed out from Jun Haoyan's body. Chapter 1662. How can you be so strong? Jun Haoyan looked at the bloody handprint that had already exploded. Zifeng's eyes were filled with malevolence, and the extremely ferocious blood pressure was like a monstrous demon that had walked out from the ground. "Trash, you think you're great, but in my eyes, you and Zhuqiufeng are just ants. You're not allowed to talk about my master like that." Jun Haoyan's soul pressure rose again as he struggled to stand up. Zifeng had already disappeared into his vital energy. While he was flabbergasted, Zifeng heavily crushed his soul pressure on Jun Haoyan's body. In an instant, terrifying blood energy spread out, and the hand that was like an arc of light heavily slapped Jun Haoyan's face. PFFF. Instantly, another line of blood soared into the sky. Jun Haoyan was hit until he saw stars, and his mind shook violently. "Kiki, I'll tell you before I see your pitiful appearance," Zifeng said fiercely and mockingly. "I've already noticed that something was wrong here. My master and I have already noticed the blood reincarnation here. My master is an idiot. He didn't dare to bear the responsibility alone and was actually stupid enough to tell Zhuqiufeng." After he finished speaking, a ball of blood energy rippled behind Zifeng as if it had materialized, and it fiercely crushed Jun Haoyan's body. Zhuqiu Feng, that bitch on the surface, told us not to interfere with matters outside the heavenly command palace, but secretly went deep into this place. Do you think that the high ground on both sides was made by the Duanmu Xiaoman? Do you think that Duanmu Xiaoman is the one who set up these rings of light at intervals of 1,000 meters? It was all secretly dug by that bitch of a master of yours to let the seven fiend blood sword fruit reappear in the world without being discovered. Seven fiend blood sword fruit, seven fiend blood sword fruit. The iron soulfish exclaimed softly. It was the first time that He had heard of this name, and he was slightly doubtful. He looked at the soul puppet beast and said with a serious expression, "Why? You know this thing? The seven fiend blood sword fruit is said to be a fruit produced by the blood sword spirit race. Its appearance is like a small sword, completely blood red and extremely sharp. Above spirit weapons, the weapons were psychic. The seven-kill blood sword fruit could stimulate the sword's instincts, reviving the sword's spirit that it had lost. It could become a divine weapon again, or even a sacred weapon. The path to greatness is simple, and the cycle of loss and gain will repeat itself. The blade will become extremely sharp again, and at the same time, the direction of the blade will become extremely murderous, which will greatly confuse the user." The iron soulfish said in a deep voice. He did not even dare to breathe too loudly. "There's actually such a thing in this world. Blood Sword Spirit Clan. How come I've never heard of it?" He couldn't help sucking in a breath of cold air. "Now is not the time to talk about this. You decide whether you want to enter or not. If the seven fiend blood sword fruit is really in front of you, it may be a tough battle. You may not win." The soul puppet looked at Yi seriously. "What do you mean?" Yi's interest was piqued when he heard the conversation between Jun Haoyan and Zifeng. There is actually such a miraculous treasure in this world that could restore a weapon's consciousness. Such a treasure was rare in the world, and Yi naturally wanted to see it. The iron soulfish's eyelids drooped as he looked at Yi. A light flashed in his eyes as he said, "I can only say that this is not something that should be here in the first place. You decide what you want to do. I can't help you. Moreover, it seems that wherever the blood sword fruit appears, the murderous aura will naturally produce some murderous creatures to protect it. Is it a demon? It doesn't have much to do with the demon race, or else I would have sensed it long ago. However, it definitely has something to do with the demon race. Yi, are you going or not?" After pondering for a while, Yi withdrew his yuan qi and gathered his spirit. He thought to himself that the origin of this matter had nothing to do with the Duanmu Xiaoman. However, he had promised the Duanmu Xiaoman that he would meet her 20,000 meters below. He naturally couldn't go back on his word. There were many things that he needed the Duanmu Xiaoman to tell him personally. "I'm going. Of course I'm going. Then I'll listen again." Zifeng, who was standing in front of Jun Haoyan, was seething with blood and qi. His long red finger pointed at Jun Haoyan and sent out a powerful finger force. He said, "I didn't want to have so many casualties outside of 7,000 meters. Why are you forcing me?" As soon as he finished speaking, Zifeng instantly moved closer to Jun Haoyan. His eyes were extremely red as he stared at Jun Haoyan like a demon. He said, "Why do you have to force me? I stopped you 7,000 meters away, and you didn't have to come in. Wouldn't it be better if you could live in peace? Why do you want to die? Kiki, you're all idiots." It turned out that Zifeng had gathered so many people to stop him in order to divert everyone's attention to Yi. This way, he could enjoy the blood sword fruit and gain power. "What do you mean?" Jun Haoyan groaned in pain. His face instantly turned pale, and his soul trembled. Duanmu Xiaoman set the sky riding soul competition at the Broken Sword Ocean as soon as she came out of seclusion. She even set the range at 7,000 meters. I knew this couldn't be hidden from this old woman. Your idiot master created a total of 14 seven evils halos to block the light of the blood sword fruit. In the end, it still couldn't be hidden from the all-seeing Duanmu Xiaoman. So the light of each circle is called the seven evils halos. Yi pondered for a moment. All of this was done by Zhuqiu Feng and Zifeng. "I don't know what you're so proud of. There's no door to hell, but you came to hell. When the competition started, you were like a fish swimming down crazily and almost ruined my plan. You're pretty good too. You actually went down to 14,000 meters. Not bad. Boom. A blood-red palm instantly rose up, and a soul pressure that was surging like the sun instantly subdued Jun Haoyin. Jun Haoyin was pressed firmly onto the ground, and his eyes gradually became lifeless. Zifeng's beautiful face was already devoid of color, and she shook a tiny blood-red pearl of light in her hand as she spoke to Jun Haoyin. But do you think you'd be able to swim here without me? You ought to have this as well, right? This is... As he looked at the shaking blood-red pearl in Zifeng's hand, Jun Haoyin instantly recalled that his master had given this pearl of light to him the night before the sky riding soul competition. So, he instantly withdrew an identical pillar of light from his pocket and spoke in a light voice. How could that be? That bastard's Wichiofeng was really good to you and gave you the seed of the blood sword fruit. Since the blood sword fruits started growing here, the blood-red, baleful chi that covered the sky changed the spatial laws of Broken Sword Ocean. For the sake of preventing it from being exposed, Master reported it to Zwichiofeng and passed this seed bestowed by the Lord Blood Dragon God to you. All the scenes of Zwichiofeng that day appeared before Jun Haoyin's eyes. No wonder Zwichiofeng told me that I would definitely be able to defeat Su Yi. Now that I think about it, Zwichiofeng completely had a deep meaning behind it. Chapter 1663. You never expected this, right? The Lord Blood Dragon God found out about Zwichiofeng and knew that this idiot would definitely ruin things. So he rewarded me with a seed. Zifeng's expression warped as he looked at Jun Haoyin, who was crushed to the point his body was on the verge of collapse, and he laughed madly. As for me, it was I who noticed the blood-red reincarnation formation here, and the blood sword fruit is about to take form. No one can destroy it before that. You and your master have to die, and Duanmu has to die as well. Everyone has to die. The strength of the blood sword fruit belongs to me alone. Of course, there's also that idiot Su Yi. He thinks he's extraordinary and even wants to break through to the 20,000M mark. No one has ever been able to arrive at the 20,000M mark, and even if they do, the blood sword fruit is there, so they'll die if they go there. Only I, Zifeng, can obtain the gift of the Lord Blood Dragon God and become the first in the heavenly command palace. Ha ha ha. Zifeng laughed gloomily and furiously. You've absolutely gone mad. You've already lost your mind for the sake of strength. Jun Haoyin spoke in a low and gloomy voice. Bullshit. What about you? Aren't you still going against Su Yi for the sake of a little bit of strength? Where's your heart as a cultivator? You're just like your master. Both of you are hypocrites, kid. Jun Haoyin pounded the ground with difficulty. At this moment, he instantly felt that he was slightly unreasonable. Because of Zwichiofeng's mistake, he wanted to regain respect in front of everyone, and he'd unintentionally fallen into obsession. At this moment, Su Yi completely understood that the blood sword fruit and the guardian demon, the blood dragon god, had already appeared at the bottom of Broken Sword Ocean, whereas Zifeng was aware of the blood sword fruit that was about to take form. Yet his master didn't dare bear the responsibility and had reported it truthfully to Zwichiofeng before the competition. Unexpectedly, Su Yi had appeared, and Zwichiofeng had secretly given the seed of the blood sword fruit to Jun Haoyin for the sake of allowing Jun Haoyin to obtain the first. The timing of the blood sword fruit and the heavenly command soul tournament clashed. After Su Yi's whereabouts became unknown at the back of the mountain, Zwichiofeng knew of Jun Haoyin's proud and aloof character, so he didn't tell Jun Haoyin the truth. The Battle of Command Souls on the second day would be held as usual. If Jun Haoyin obtained the first, then based on Jun Haoyin's outstanding display, Zwichiofeng would naturally be able to become the master of the palace. It wouldn't be too late to tell Jun Haoyin the truth after the blood sword fruits ripened. During the Heavenly Wind ranking tournament, Jun Haoyin would be able to represent the imperial heavenly palace in the 6 continents, 3 continents, and 1 ocean. The blood sword fruit could be said to be Zwichiofeng's trump card, and all of this was directly destroyed by Duanmu Xiaoman's forceful suppression. The Duanmu Xiaoman should be aware of Zhuqiu Feng's actions at the bottom of the Broken Sword Ocean, but she shouldn't know it so thoroughly. As far as Su Yi was concerned, the Duanmu Xiaoman was going along with Zhuqiu Feng's plan. Otherwise, she wouldn't have allowed so many people to enter the Broken Sword Ocean. Duanmu Xiaoman's intentions could be seen by setting the Imperial Soul competition at the Broken Sword Ocean. At this moment, the spatial laws of the Broken Sword Ocean were already different from before. After 7,000 meters, those below the Origin Emperor realm wouldn't be able to enter at all. After 10,000 meters, they didn't even need to think about it. However, it was Su Yi's arrival that destroyed Zi Feng's plan. Su Yi's arrival caused Jun Haoyan's sudden emergence, and the bet between Su Yi and Duanmu Xiaoman caused the blood sword fruit that was about to ripen to have the possibility of being destroyed. Naturally, Zi Feng would not allow such a thing to happen. Thus, he lured everyone to intercept Su. His biggest goal was to prevent others from discovering the secret of the broken sword and sea of blood. If he went crazy and intercepted Jun Haoyan, he would be able to eliminate the two most unstable factors in his plan. As for the remaining Duanmu Xiaoman, she would become the food of the blood dragon god. So Zi Feng didn't need to consider her. Su Yi suddenly thought that Zi Feng was really a talent, but it was a pity that he sold his soul to the devil. However, Old Iron once said that the blood sword fruit and the blood dragon god didn't belong to this place. Duanmu definitely didn't know about it, but for the sake of the bet, Duanmu would definitely wait for him at 20,000 meters. In that case, Duanmu would be in danger. Su Yi suddenly frowned. You should worry about yourself. You should think about how to get out. If it's really like what this kid said, the blood sword fruit and the broken sword ocean are no joke. No, I have to go save her, Su Yi said with a frown. Who's going to save who? You better think carefully. That little girl's cultivation might be above mine. My current state. Cough cough. You'll be helping the wrong side if you go. The Iron Soulfish said righteously, afraid that Su Yi would act impulsively. Boom. Old Iron. If I don't save her, I feel that there are many things that I won't be able to figure out for the rest of my life. The Iron Soulfish suddenly shouted and stood up from the vestibule. I see that you've taken a liking to her. Calm down for me. Come back. Su Yi's skinny yet proud body stood up abruptly. The illusory sky, white dragon mantra, and the art of controlling the heavens were activated at the same time. In an instant, an extremely powerful sound of wind and thunder spread out from Su Yi's body. His body then leaped up again and rushed towards Zi Feng. It's still better than someone like you who has lost his mind. Su Yi slowly appeared from the blood ocean. The white light around his body made him look like a god. The Iron Soulfish angrily shouted from inside Su Yi's body. Hey, are you listening to me? Don't go. Who is it? Zi Feng turned around to look. As soon as he finished speaking, a white shadow of a Jiao dragon appeared behind Su. A clear dragon's roar pierced through the blood ocean, causing the hearts of those who heard it to tremble. Su Yi, Zi Feng, and Jun Haoyan cried out at the same time. They didn't think that Su Yi would be able to come so quickly. Bang! Extreme Illusory Sky Slash. This was Su Yi's second ability as a white serpent god. He possessed a soul aura that far exceeded that of a normal barbarian beast. He was able to manipulate the soul aura generated in the air and use it as a weapon to attack his enemies when they were unprepared. In an instant, the blood ocean's aura in Su Yi's hand was like a long blood-colored saber. His entire body was covered in a crimson light and carried with it a murderous aura that filled the air. The blood that was condensed in the air suddenly trembled. High up in the sky, an extremely mysterious and unpredictable arc was drawn in an instant. It blended with the surroundings and instantly flashed out. Su Yi's figure leaped up high and aimed at Zi Feng's head with an extremely ferocious blade aura. Boom! Only when he got closer did Su Yi see that Zi Feng's body was covered in layers of blood-colored scales. It was as if he was a man made of blood. Su Yi's expression changed slightly. Zi Feng was covered in blood qi, and his murderous aura condensed. The scales on his arms instantly collided with Su Yi's saber. Then a huge surge of blood chi surged, and the place where the two collided was like tofu. Instantly, the space was torn apart, and the blood-red armor that Zifeng quickly set up wrapped around him from head to toe. Zifeng roared. His blood-red eyes were filled with murderous intent. His hands instantly grabbed onto Su Yi's blood-colored saber. Suddenly, Su Yi's expression changed. He shouted, "Not good." Chapter 1664. Boom! Su Yi, you're courting death. The blood chi around Zifeng's body was like glue, tightly wrapping around Su Yi's blood-red long saber. Zifeng's face was filled with killing intent. With a wave of his soul, he instantly shot out a soul ribbon from his hand towards Su Yi. Blood aura surged, and the spiritual pressure in the air suddenly reached its peak. The three people's souls trembled, and the vibrating space at the bottom of the sea burst out with a deep sound of sonic booms. Bang, bang. Suddenly, Su Yi's face darkened. After being hit, Su Yi could feel the blood aura in his meridian surging. His tough body began to gradually turn red. His soul energy is too corrosive. Looking at Zifeng, Su Yi wanted to retreat, but it was too late. Zifeng held Su Yi's blood-red long saber like a pair of giant pincers. Disdain flashed in his eyes, and his blood aura burst out like smoke. Chi. The blood-red long saber was like snow under the sunlight. It became paralyzed in front of Su Yi, and in less than a breath of time, it melted into the bottom of the sea. In the next moment, purple wind swept to the depth of Su Yi's body at an astonishing speed. A blood-red, murderous aura spread out in all directions. Behind him, it was as if an extremely brutal and monstrous blood dragon shadow had appeared. The sky was filled with an extremely terrifying might. There was a sharp and ear-piercing roar in the air. The dragon's claws were as sharp as knives as they were pointed at Su Yi's chest. The blood claw slammed directly at him. Blood Dragon Saint Claw, Zifeng shouted coldly. Bang! With a crisp sound, it was obvious that Zifeng's strength had reached the upper level 4. The space trembled, and in an instant, the Blood Dragon Claw was in front of Su Yi. Whoosh! The demon spirit battle armor appeared. Su Yi, who was glowing with a demonic light from head to toe, instantly sent out 2 fiery red thunderbolts to block the Blood Dragon Claw. At the same time, his body retreated rapidly. 2 dull sounds came from the bottom of the sea. Under the protection of the demon spirit battle armor, the blood aura became even more demonic. The entire Broken Sword Sea was suddenly filled with demonic aura and evil light. The whistling seawater was constantly flowing in his ears. The blood-red soul energy that filled the sky instantly turned everything around him into corpses and withered things. Su Yi, who had been hit by the palm, could feel the blood and spiritual energy in his body rushing toward the heavenly origin demon soul. Not good, he exclaimed inwardly. In the blink of an eye, Su Yi quickly circulated the illusory sky white dragon cannon. At the same time, his hand seals changed continuously. Protective Zhun Qi and golden dragon patterns quickly spread all over his body. His soul energy was like flowing water, nourishing his Tian Yuan beast soul. I wonder who's courting death. Su Yi's face instantly turned cold. He activated the illusory sky extreme killing blade again. A cold light flashed in his eyes. Su Yi waved his hand. This time, Su Yi took the initiative to attack. After knowing the characteristics of Zifeng's blood aura, Su Yi's demon spirit battle armor and protective Yuan Qi were all activated. His figure turned into a stream of light and shot towards Zifeng like a bolt of lightning. Unparalleled dragon flash. Illusory sky extreme killing blade. Su Yi's figure tore through the sky, as if he was piercing through the sea. In an instant, 4 soul shadow doppelgangers appeared in the sea. In this sea filled with rich soul energy, this move was the most practical. Su Yi, who was extremely fast, created a series of ripples and explosions in the vibrating space of the seawater. The long space ripples were very spectacular. At this moment, Zifeng's face changed. Su Yi was coming from all directions. Every one of them was a physical existence. Looking at Su Yi's soul shadow tearing through space, Zifeng blurted out, "How is this possible? Die!" Su Yi shouted. In the next moment, the soul wind blades swept across the sky, creating countless ripples in the sea. They continuously hit Zifeng's face. In terms of strength, with the help of the Blood Dragon God's power, Zifeng had instantly reached the high 4th rank. However, the quality of his soul was worlds apart from Su Yi's. Looking at Su Yi's 4 soul shadows, Zifeng was already scared out of his wits. The blood dragon shadow behind him reacted in a panic, but it was soon covered in blood by the small soul blades. In the blood fog, while Zifeng was still thinking about the situation, Su Yi would not let go of such a good opportunity. Su Yi shouted, and the first characteristic of the white flood dragon god was instantly used. Too slow. The sound waves followed Zifeng's body like a shadow. The sound waves that filled the sky were amplified by the seawater. The roaring sound echoed in Zifeng's soul. "You deserve to die." The faint cold voice made Zifeng feel an invisible soul energy. The spiritual energy and soul energy in his body seemed to be stagnant. Pucci. At the same time, a line of blood could be seen flying out. Zifeng fiercely smashed into the high ground beside him, creating a long, bloody ripple in the seawater. With his back against the high ground, Zifeng's face was instantly filled with shock. Su Yi's physical strength was beyond his imagination. This vast soul, energy, and unimaginable soul skill were also far beyond his imagination. The attack that followed the shadows was impossible to guard against. The 4 soul shadows directly amplified the attack, and the final sound wave attack directly caused his mind to collapse. The ability that he obtained by relying on the Blood Dragon God was actually neutralized by Su Yi in a few moves. Zifeng's face immediately turned pale, and his mind collapsed. How could he say anything else? He only wanted to quickly escape. In the end, he kept muttering, "Impossible, impossible." Still want to escape? Zifeng, you can't escape. Su Yi's eyes darkened. At the side, Jun Haoyan slowly stood up. He was trembling, and his eyes were deep. The color of blood had not yet recovered, but his hand seals were formed. The soul energy of a mid-tier 4th grade soul was immediately spread out. The seed of Jun Haoyan's blood sword fruit immediately floated in the air, looking especially enchanting and fishy in the sea of blood. The next moment, the seed of blood sword fruit in Zifeng's bosom seemed to have sensed something, and an exquisite and tiny blood aura instantly rose into the air, responding from a distance. Whoosh! Jun Haoyan glanced at Su Yi and pondered for a moment. The soul ribbon in his hand swept out like a floating light. An array of light immediately enveloped the 2 blood sword fruit seeds. "Jun Haoyan, you bastard, what are you doing?" Zifeng shouted himself hoarse. His face was close to withered. Boom! The sword seed suddenly exploded, turning into a huge blood-red energy aura that surged out. Su Yi shouted, "Jun Haoyan, retreat." Jun Haoyan's eyes were filled with boundless energy and a majestic blood aura. The blood chi that filled the sky quickly dissipated in the vast broken sword sea. Su Yi's heavenly origin demon, soul, immediately trembled. This blood chi was incomparably majestic and could cause a great impact on the soul. Calm. Wonderful Book House. Chapter 1665. The Sea of Blood was like the bottom of the sea, filled with red smoke. It was filled with killing intent, blood, and decay. The whirlpool at the side was filled with blood bubbles that were like magma spat out by a giant beast. The Sea of Blood was deep, and everything seemed to be annihilated by the explosion. The blood sword fruit exploded, and countless blood arrows pierced through the sea. Chi! Zifeng stood up as if he had gone mad. He stood up straight and kept grabbing the remaining killing intent of the blood sword fruit. Su Yi and Jun Hao Yin could feel that Zifeng's soul energy was dissipating, and his soul cultivation was decreasing. Upper grade 4, middle grade 4, lower grade 4. At this time, Zifeng was incomparably crazy. His body was covered in blood because of the countless tiny blades of the ultimate illusion Skyblade. His exposed skin was bathed in blood, and under the cleansing of the blood, it became even more terrifying. My cultivation, my cultivation. Zifeng roared crazily. His hands were constantly slapping and pushing in the air. Streaks of soul light whizzed out from his palms. In the blink of an eye, the entire seabed was turned upside down, the earth quaked, and the mountains shook. Countless resources and sediment were instantly destroyed into dregs in the blood water. Upper grade 3, middle grade 3. His cultivation was still decreasing, and Zifeng's cultivation finally stopped at the middle grade 3. Due to the dissipation of the blood sword fruit's baleful aura, Zifeng was like a walking corpse, drifting in the air like a rootless person. He had been completely bewitched by the blood sword fruit's baleful aura, constantly shouting from afar, "I'm going to kill you. Jun Haoyan, what's the big deal about being a middle grade 4? Su Yi, you bastard, get out here." Two figures retreated from the blood clouds like lightning, instantly leaving the area covered by the blood aura. Below them was the 15,000-meter wide ring of light, shining with a resplendent light. "Jun Haoyan, you don't have to do this." Sui frowned as he looked at Jun Haoyan. His actions earlier were too dangerous. If he wanted to deal the final blow to Zifeng, he could have done it himself. There was no need for Jun Haoyan to do it himself. Turning his head to look at Zifeng in the blood mist, Jun Haoyan's disappointment was mixed with melancholy. It was clear that Jun Haoyan's mind had already returned to normal. He said solemnly, "All these years, under the leadership of Master, Heavenly Command Palace has indeed neglected their subordinates too much. Right and wrong, karma arose because of both of us. The blood sword fruit arose because of me, so naturally it will perish because of me." Jun Haoyan clenched his fists as he looked at Zifeng, whose cultivation was much lower than before. He roared, "I've already destroyed the blood sword fruit. I know my strength very well. If you come too quickly, it'll all be for naught. Or perhaps going too far is as bad as not going far enough. That's right. What's not yours will never be yours. If it's yours, no one can take it away from you." Su Yi raised his eyes and looked at the dazed Jun Haoyan. He sighed in his heart. One was the #1 disciple of Heavenly Command Palace, and the other was the #1 disciple of Arch-K Lake. They should have had a bright future ahead of them, but because of the blood sword fruit, they didn't have a good ending. Perhaps this was the best outcome. Jun Haoyan was decisive and didn't suffer too much of a backlash from the blood sword fruit. As for Zifeng, because he was immersed in the blood mist, his meridians and soul were severely damaged when the blood sword fruit was destroyed. Even his mind was in an abnormal state. Jun Haoyan, whose eyes were already lifeless, staggered because he had consumed too much soul energy. He looked at Su Yi with a bitter smile and said, "Now I know why I can reach 14,000 meters. I'd rather not have this blood sword fruit." "You're a real man," Su Yi said softly. Boom, boom. In the distance, Zifeng was still yelling nonstop. He was in a state of madness and was constantly pounding his chest and stamping his feet. In the space where the blood mist was surging, rumbling noises were constantly produced. The entire space was on the verge of collapse. Looking at Zifeng, Jun Haoyan said unhurriedly, "I'll take junior brother Zifeng and leave. Zifeng is too strong. Master's selfishness caused such an outcome. Su, I've lost this battle. Please continue walking down the path for me. There can't be any more casualties. No one can be harmed because of Master's mistake." Su Yi nodded and looked at Jun Haoyan with a profound gaze. He nodded repeatedly in his heart and said, "This sober Jun Haoyan really has some responsibility. He's much stronger than Zhuqiu Feng. If possible, I really hope that Jun Haoyan can help Achu and Li Shiren more in the future." Whoosh! In the next moment, Jun Hao Ian looked at the enormous space that had been destroyed to the point of desolation. He took a deep breath and condensed a hand seal. Then Jun Hao Ian flew towards Zi Feng like a stream of light. He struck Zi Feng's head and carried the limp Zi Feng as he said in a deep voice, "Junior brother Zi Feng, follow me back to Heavenly Command Palace to receive your punishment. You don't have the blood sword fruit. How are you going to get out?" Su Yi asked. Jun Hao Ian's face was ghastly pale. A trace of tranquility flashed through his eyes as he said, "Su Yi, you're underestimating me too much." Then Jun Hao Ian picked out a small jade stone from his pocket. It was only the size of a thumb. He swiped it in the air, and a shocking pressure instantly flashed out in the space that was suffused with bloody, baleful qi. The pressure was accompanied by electric arcs, and an extremely dense spatial rift suddenly appeared. Rumble! Dense white electric arcs revolved around it like a waterfall, and the electric arcs that had the size of an infant's arm rumbled and roared. Space-cracking jade? Su Yi asked in surprise. Jun Hao Ian was clearly using the space-cracking jade, but it was so convenient and simple to use. Haha, this is the lesser space-cracking jade that Heavenly Command Palace improved on the foundation of the space-cracking jade. Unlike the space-cracking jade that's suitable for teleportation across space and time, this lesser space-cracking jade requires relatively loose energy and restrictions. Moreover, it only supports teleportation within a few tens of thousands of meters. It can only be used once, and it'll be destroyed once it's used. There's actually such a good thing. Su Yi praised in his heart. It seemed like he still had to explore the Heavenly Command Palace more in the future. In terms of treasures, the Heavenly Command Palace was still the best. Su Yi, I really don't want to say this, but you're really strong. Those evil creatures below, please help the Heavenly Command Palace get rid of them. Rumble. In an instant, Jun Hao Ian carried Zifeng and ran towards the countless spatial rifts. Immediately, the surrounding spatial energy surged, and the spatial rifts closed with a sharp gust of wind. Looking at the two people who had already disappeared, Su Yi felt that Jun Hao Ian was still a little arrogant. At the last moment, he was willing to let him get rid of them rather than admit that his master's old rival, Duanmu, was below. He couldn't help but shake his head and smile bitterly. Su Yi's heart ached. He didn't expect the blood sword fruit to be so powerful. It was a pity that he didn't come to the bottom of the Broken Sword Sea earlier to find more treasures for the Bawang sect. Wouldn't it be a good thing if he could equip the Bawang sect with treasures like the floating silverwood? It's a pity that these treasures at the bottom of the sea are wasted. Let's go. Who knows, there might be some treasures below. Having lost the opportunity to obtain a rare treasure, Su Yi's heart ached for a while. However, he didn't think too much about it. After all, the Heavenly Command Palace was a treasure trove. Looking at the 15,000-meter circle of light, Su Yi's heart began to turn serious. It must be extremely difficult down there. You really have to be prepared, the iron soulfish said faintly. Chapter 1666. On the Broken Sword Cliff, the sea breeze was blowing. All the spectating elders had their jaws dropped to the ground as they looked at the light screen. The two dots of light had already started to converge at a distance of 15,000 meters. Gue, Han Wulong, and the others had their eyes wide open. Even the ordinary elders behind them were swallowing their saliva. They all believed that an earth-shattering battle was taking place at the bottom of the Broken Sword Cliff. Fear, panic, and guesses surrounded everyone's heart. Han Wulong and Gyue raised their eyebrows at the same time as their hearts tightened. If the dot of light continued to sink, this battle would be considered a victory. The other elders were also nervous. The battle between Su Yi and Jun Hao Ian was clearly a battle between the new generation of the Command Heavenly Palace. Although Su Yi wasn't a member of the Command Heavenly Palace yet, under the guidance of Palace Master Duanmu, they would definitely try to rope in Su Yi. No matter who won, if the dot of light could sink to 15,000 meters, it would be a victory for the Command Heavenly Palace. The ordinary elders behind them had uneasy expressions. As expected, The chaotic battle and the command Heavenly Soul competition had nothing to do with them. 15,000 meters. Who do you think will win? Jun Hao-Yin or Sui? Whoever comes out will be the winner. Among the ordinary elders, a person with a wrinkled face, high cheekbones, and a few strands of silver hair that showed the vicissitudes of life didn't say a word. Elder Z, don't worry. Although Z Feng is arrogant, he won't do anything stupid. Oomph. This time, our Arch-K Lake's people are here to serve as foils again. When will the Arch-K Lake produce such a genius? The corner of Elder Z's eyes twitched. He placed his hands behind his back and was about to go to the other side to relax. The elders behind him said softly, "Stop talking." Elder Z originally wanted to follow Zhuo Qiufeng's path, but he didn't expect to end up like this. Elder Z? It can't be. His disciple Z Feng is the #1 disciple of the Arch-K Lake. Even the top 5 personal disciples would be worth watching. Chila. As soon as he finished speaking, the wind and clouds in the distant skies surged. Thick dark clouds instantly pressed down on the sky. Then a figure tore through the space and arrived. The surging waves rose high like a white dragon burning the sky. A figure stood in the air. His face was pale, and his long black hair was already messy. Someone is coming out. Schwa. Their gazes were like sharp swords as they landed on the newcomer. Everyone exclaimed, "Jun Hao-Yin! It's Jun Hao-Yin!" Han Wulong and Gu Yue were also very surprised. They frowned and whispered, "Strange, why didn't the light spot move?" The water column was like a dragon, instantly dispersing the dark clouds. Everyone rushed forward and saw clearly that Jun Hao-Yin was carrying a person in his hand. The person looked like a bloody person. There was not a single part of the person's body that was intact. The flesh that had split open revealed a trace of a fishy smell. It was as if the person had been pulled out from a swamp and had lost all vitality and vitality. Who is that person? Han Wulong roared in a low voice. It didn't look like Sui. The light spot on the light screen didn't disappear. What happened? Why did Jun Hao-Yin come out from the space crack? Guiyue whispered softly. At this time, an old man in a purple robe rushed out from the crowd. His figure turned into a stream of light and took the bloody Z Feng from Jun Hao-Yin's hand. "Fenger, it really is you. Why did you still choose this path?" Jun Hao-Yin coughed twice. His eyes were lifeless. It was obvious that he had suffered severe internal injuries. His heart and soul were in turmoil. He coldly said to Elder Z in front of him, "Those who are unjust are doomed to destruction. Junior brother Z Feng is too stubborn." Suddenly, Jun Hao-Yin looked at the sky and smiled bitterly. A mouthful of blood mist instantly sprayed 3 feet into the sky. What was the difference between him and Z Feng? One of them represented Heavenly Drive River, while the other represented Arch-K Lake. In fact, they were both disciples of Heavenly Drive Palace. Why was there a need to distinguish between those who were close or distant? It's all karma. After saying this, Jun Hao-Yin's heart and soul trembled. His eyes were dazzled, and he fell backward. Elder Wang's roar came from behind him. "Hao-Yin! Hao-Yin!" Luo Wuya, Long Pashan, and the other middle 5th-rank experts suddenly burst into the air. Like 2 sword lights, they suddenly arrived in the air and caught the falling Jun Hao-Yin in an instant. Returning to the high cliff, Elder Z gently put Z Feng down. His eyes were full of shame and disappointment. His lips trembled as he looked at his disciple lying on the ground in despair. His former pride had now faded into the crowd. His cultivation had regressed. He thought that from now on, he would no longer have the capital to surpass others. What happened to Z Feng? Why did Jun Hao-Yin come out from the space crack? What does it have to do with Z Feng? At this time, Gu Yue and Han Wulong also walked over. Their eyes were cold. Gu Yue slowly poured his vitality into Jun Hao-Yin's body. Bang! The sudden rise in temperature set off a boundless soul fluctuation. Immediately, it formed a rebounding light wave in the air and rushed into Gu Yue's palm. Blood chi surged. Scarlet evil chi flowed out from Jun Hao-Yin's skin. In an instant, countless amounts of evil chi shot into the air. His eyes flashing, Gyue hurriedly formed a hand seal. He activated the art of controlling the heavens to refine the evil chi in his palm. His eyes were slightly surprised. He turned to Han Wulong and said softly, "This is blood chi?" Han Wulong's eyes immediately shone. His expression was serious. He squatted down, and a golden light slowly poured into Jun Haoyan's body. Similarly, with a bang, a turbid and surging evil chi surged. An incomparably hot energy immediately rushed into Han Wulong's heart and soul. Roar! A dragon's roar sounded out of thin air, and a monstrous energy surged out from Han Wulong's body as if it had transcended the heavens and the earth. The bones in his hands cracked as an astonishing energy once again flowed into Jun Haoyan's body. Boom! In that instant, a blood-red soul attack also shot out, causing Han Wulong's golden dragon aura to become even more anxious. Tion's sharp and desolate aura, as well as her terrifying soul attack, was also released. Whoosh! Han Wulong's figure suddenly retreated, and the space rippled. Han Wulong roared angrily, and a golden light beam shot out from his hand. Chi-chi! Sounds kept coming from his hand, and the golden light shone brightly like the sun and instantly dispersed the blood chi. This evil chi is no small matter, Han Wulong said in a deep voice. Luo Wuya, Long Pas Han, and Gyue all frowned. Looks like something shocking really happened at 15,000 meters. Su is still down there. This won't do, Han Wulong said. Looking at the light screen, the light spot representing Su E was still moving at a distance of 15,000 meters. Everyone was inexplicably shocked and shouted out loud. Su E is still sinking. He's still alive. Making a prompt decision, Gyue immediately gave the order. He said in a clear voice, Pasan, quickly bring Zi Feng and Haoyan back to the heaven-controlling river to treat their injuries. Sect Master Han, Palace Master Duanmu, is still down there. The situation down there is not something we can control. With Palace Master Duanmu here, we can take our time to plan. Chapter 1667. After hearing Gyue's words, Han Wulong lowered his gaze and seemed to be thinking about something. He glanced at Jun Haoyan and Zi Feng who were lying on the ground. At this moment, Han Wulong really wanted to know what had happened below. All right, Gyue, I'll wait for a while longer, Han Wulong said in a low voice while his heart tightened. The large number of light spots on the light screen were around 4 to 5 kilometers away. Han Yuro wasn't very concerned about it, but Su he must be fine. After watching everyone carry Jun Haoyan and Zi Feng away, everyone started to ask Elder Z what exactly had happened. The ordinary elders who just noticed that something was wrong with Elder Z instantly felt their hearts jerk. They looked at Elder Z's lifeless face that was filled with despair. He sat weakly on the ground and said absent-mindedly, "Blood sword fruit. It's all because of the blood sword fruit that Feng is like this. Haoyan's injury is definitely related to it." Gyue and Han Wulong were both surprised. They'd heard of the blood sword fruit before, but they'd never seen it. At this moment, they were even more confused as they thought in their hearts. Blood sword fruit. Could it be that such a thing really exists in the world? At the side, Elder Vassal and teaching elders also had solemn expressions on their faces. The ordinary elders began to chatter incessantly. What's the blood sword fruit? How can it be so formidable? It's 10,000 meters below the ground? I've never heard of it. Does the Cloud Prefecture have such a thing? I've never heard of it in other continents either. What exactly is it? Bang! A powerful aura spread out. At the same time, a strand of golden light that was visible to the naked eye was suffused and struck the high cliff. Under the light, a whistling sound that shot into the sky shook the sky and broke through the dark clouds. In an instant, the rocks surged and the sea breeze blew violently. All of you shut the fuck up. Listen to Elder Z. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone was slightly surprised, but they were afraid of Han Wulong's strength, so they all kept silent. What exactly is going on? Elder Z was on the verge of tears as he ceaselessly knocked his forehead with his hand and complained. It's all my fault. It's all that bastard Zhuqiufeng's fault. I told Feng not to interfere in this matter. Why? After asking a dozen or so questions, he didn't say anything else. Regardless of who urged him, Elder Z was still immersed in the grief of his beloved disciple being destroyed. Guyue gently pulled Han Wulong to the side. Han Wulong's veins were bulging. He straightened his neck and breathed heavily. He said fiercely, "What is this old Z doing? We're about to die from anxiety, yet he's still putting on airs. What's he doing?" Guyue sighed lightly and shook his head as he said, "I'm probably able to guess most of this matter. It's probably because Zhuqiufeng ordered them to disregard the birth of the bloodsword fruit. Yet Zi Feng acted willfully and caused the phenomena from before to appear repeatedly. What about the bloodsword fruit?" Han Wulong lowered his voice. "That's right. It's related to Qing Tian's disappearance. It said that Qing Tian returned to the Sky Barbarian continent twice, and he returned to the Cloud continent once. The bloodsword fruit isn't something from the 6 continents, 3 continents, and 1 sea." Guyue's eyelids twitched. He felt a little creeped out when he mentioned the name and the matters behind it. Han Wulong stood with his hands on his back, his robes fluttering. A trace of anxiety flashed across his determined face. He nodded heavily and said, "Nothing must happen to Su Yi. Of course, this matter is related to Qing Tian. The palace master must have guessed the reason for going down early. It's best for us to wait here, at the bottom of the Broken Sword Sea, in the 15,000-meter circle." Su Yi, who had broken through to the 15,000-meter circle, soaked in the sea water. The blood-red liquid streaked across Su Yi's jade-like skin, glittering in the depths of the vast and deep sea. The white and red light flowed strangely. Whoosh! Su Yi clearly felt that the soul pressure around him had begun to rise rapidly. He felt as if he had fallen into an abyss. The Yuanyang heavenly dragon bone could faintly feel a kind of pressure that pervaded the world. The 15,000-meter circle no longer has the 7 fiends halo. The soul pressure is far from what the previous circles can compare to. Su Yi's heart sank. Everywhere he looked, there was a blood-red sea and lifeless floating objects. Only then did Su Yi realize that this circle was much more difficult than the previous ones. After 7,000 meters, ordinary warriors and soul personages could no longer enter. The next layer was even more difficult than the previous one. The current circle was equivalent to 2 to 3 times the depth of the previous one, 30 to 40,000 meters. No matter what, I'm still first. Su Yi shook his head and smiled bitterly. Su Yi was very clear on this point. If he didn't have the art of driving the heavens, the supreme art of origin, and the heavenly fate ancient scripture, combined with the white flood dragon's power, the diamond body, the refinement of the golden dragon, and the tempering of the heavenly fey soul, he wouldn't have been able to hold on. Therefore, this was the reason why Su Yi dared to take the risk. If someone else was here, they would definitely gasp. The merciless West couldn't even reach 5,000 meters, but Su Yi had already reached a depth of 30 to 40,000 meters with his heaven-defying soul pressure. Su Yi's current goal was 20,000 meters. Not only did he want to fulfill his promise, but he also wanted to take a look at the blood sword fruit. If he could restore the sword spirit of his blood demon killing god sword, wouldn't that be wonderful? Kid, I'll say it one last time. It's not that simple. You better keep your own life. I still need to reincarnate. Okay. Su Yi could hear the iron soulfish's concern for him and nodded heavily. Looking around, the white flood dragon's power was fully activated. Su Yi's clothes fluttered in the sea of blood, making him look like a blood-red god of death who had lived in this world for a long time. An invisible pressure was resisting the seawater in the surrounding air. Even the air seemed to have frozen as he looked down coldly at the endless bloody abyss below. Boom! A bone-chilling coldness suddenly seeped out of Su Yi's body. The primal young heavenly dragon bone began to emit a crackling sound. Su Yi's body was like a heavy weight as he rapidly descended, forming a huge bubble of air in the sea of blood. His long tail was like a meteor in the sea of blood. After 15,000 meters, the Seven Evils Halo's restriction was no longer there. Su Yi tried his best to increase his speed, but the seawater pressure that was gradually spreading above him was like a maggot in his bones, constantly seeping into his skin and meridians, as if it was going to disintegrate and collapse Su Yi's heart and soul again. In the sea of blood, it was as if a white light was torn apart in space. It spread out with golden, blue, and red lights, and a terrifyingly high temperature that even the soul couldn't withstand fell vertically. The sudden high pressure caused Su Yi's killing intent to surge. His deep eyes surged with light. "You want to stop me with this? You're dreaming." Gulp. Chapter 1668. Su Yi's body was filled with an increasingly heavy pressure. The depths of the blood sea were like a bolt of lightning as they fell from the sky. His ears were filled with the sound of bubbles, whistling into Su Yi's ears. The terrifying whirlpools around him were constantly spewing out blood-red light. The huge bubbles were like a bloody mouth that could swallow Su Yi in an instant. It's getting more and more difficult down there. At 20,000 meters, the pressure is no longer comparable to ordinary pressure. If you feel that it's impossible, you can retreat at any time. The iron soulfish reminded Su Yi once again. At this time, Su Yi was no longer careless. His soul energy instantly spread out. His aura was like that of a supreme king that had existed since ancient times. It revealed an indescribable ancient aura, and at the same time, it carried an indescribable evil aura. It was faintly in tune with the eerie atmosphere around him. "It's just a pressure. Let's go." The heavenly origin demon soul was like a small sun. It instantly lit up and became extremely dazzling. The crimson light spread all over his body, and for no reason, he felt as if his soul was about to be set on fire. He used the peerless dragon flash once again. In a spurt of energy, he could gradually see the blood-red light overflowing from the bottom. It was as cold and evil as hell. Even in the blood sea, it was as bright as a blooming peony. As he sank, he could see the weapons and pill bottles floating around him. They had completely lost their spiritual chi and vitality. Looking around, there were countless undersea barbaric demonic beasts of various sizes wandering around the vast seabed. Some of them were hundreds of meters long and covered in scales. They were extremely ferocious, and their huge bodies gave off a terrifying aura. "Are these the undersea demon beasts that they were talking about?" Su Yi said in surprise. "What a pity. These little creatures are all top demon beasts that could dominate an area outside. How could they die so inexplicably?" The soul puppet squinted its eyes. Su Yi pondered for a moment and said, "At a depth of 20,000 meters, after cultivating here for so many years, I've also been contaminated by the blood chi." At the same time, Su Yi's figure once again descended with lightning speed. If it was so dangerous, then there must be a shocking secret hidden below. It had something to do with the heavenly palace, the Duanmu Shao man, this continent, and himself. Su Yi had a feeling that if he could pass this trial, many of the impossible things about him would come to light. Perhaps his parents and the mysterious ball of light were also existences that did not belong to this continent. Right there, looking from afar, one could see a huge blood-red halo filled with killing intent. The dense red light was dazzling, and the vitality of the entire space was sucked away like a vacuum. Su Yi used the shaking 100 steps and the peerless dragon flash at the same time. Suddenly, countless afterimages were left behind as he arrived near the blood-red halo in the blink of an eye. With one step, Su Yi could clearly see that the blood-red halo was actually a ring of sparkling and translucent blood-red jade. It was emitting a terrifying light, and the surging blood chi turned everything around it into dust, leaving no trace behind. The blood sword fruit is about to take shape. This halo should be the first layer of protection for this space. You'd better think of a way to get in. The iron soulfish said in a deep voice. His unprecedented calmness and seriousness added a sense of mystery and thrill to the situation. As he approached the blood-red halo, a majestic blood chi poured out and turned into a faint pattern of demon beasts, exploding towards Su-yi. The invisible blood chi swept across the area along with a monstrous strength. Su-yi immediately saw countless horrifying and bloody scenes. Roar! In an instant, the blood chi shot out from the halo. A long dragon-shaped waterfall whistled through the air, rushing towards Su-yi. The space also spread out in an instant. The boundless space rippled, and the blood chi swirled in the air. It was extremely terrifying. The blood chi light dragon was like surging magma. Su-yi, who had just taken a step forward, turned around and retreated as fast as lightning. At the same time, he formed a hand seal and shouted, "Go!" Horrifying flames swept out with a destructive force. As the fourth-level Origin Emperor realm cultivation collided with the blood dragon, the destructive high temperature instantly spread out. Layers after layers of flames enveloped the fire dragon. In a short moment, the wailing of thousands of ghosts stopped abruptly. The flames eroded and emitted a crackling sound amidst the spreading blood-red color. It was extremely shocking. The scarlet wings were constantly flapping behind him, and the surrounding extremely dry space was instantly shattered. At this moment, Su-yi's dark eyes were filled with killing intent, and the baleful aura was getting heavier. Boom! Breaking out from the flames, a miserable voice resounded. The voice was extremely sharp and penetrated the space. At the same time, the pressure pressed down on Su-yi like a sea of blood. The blood dragon soared into the sky, instantly turning into an extremely terrifying face as it shot out. In an instant, the energy in the world suddenly became extremely violent. Zhuqiu Feng. When he saw Zhuqiu Feng's face, Su-yi, who realized something was wrong, immediately knew that this was the sole attack of the bloodlight. Su-yi shouted softly. His hand seals changed continuously, and he constantly waved them in the air with endless soul energy. Ultimate Illusion Skyblade. Under the blade light, a large area of space was sliced like tofu. The blood-red space that was as heavy as a thick layer of earth instantly began to emit sounds of rapidly peeling off. The face that was like a spider web was rapidly spreading. Swish, swish, swish. Clang, clang. Under the attack of 100 blades, the waterfall from before turned into nothingness. The soul energy turned into ripples of energy and returned to the blood-red light. Su-yi's figure began to grow taller. His starry eyes were deep, and the terrifying aura around him carried the murderous aura of a nine-heaven supreme. It was enough to make one's heart tremble. When the last blade light was slashed out, the surging blood aura had already turned into nothingness. Only the blood-red light ring was left standing silently, and it would occasionally let out a buzzing sound. Every time the light overflowed, there would be red ripples rippling out one after another, like the pulse of a heart. Su-yi discovered that the number and extent of the light overflowed was increasing. He thought to himself, "Looks like the blood sword fruit is about to take shape." This blood ring's soul attack and physical attack are both extremely powerful. Of course, soul attacks are innate. The reason why its physical attack is so powerful must be because it has absorbed the souls of all the creatures in the Broken Sword seabed. Those demon beasts have probably been absorbed by the blood sword fruit itself. If you want to enter, this blood ring will definitely break. Within the blood-red space, Su-yi's soul aura had already spread out. The soaring blood aura was like a huge dragon that resonated with Su-yi from afar. Whoosh! Under the terrifying pressure, a purple demonic light gradually appeared in Su-yi's hand. When the heavenly star Shock Soul appeared, a long blade light slashed out. It was as if a pitch-black spatial crack had been torn open in the frozen space. Instantly, the blood aura seemed to have sensed it and began to tremble uneasily. No matter how strong it is, it's just a protective ring. Can it be stronger than an origin ancestor? Su Yi's cold determination spread out, and his battle intent erupted. Chapter 1669. High up in the sky, the majestic Su Yi slashed out with his saber. The purple saber beam slashed out with a shocking might, immediately setting off monstrous waves in space. Layers of spatial cracks, accompanied by blood-colored ripples, bombarded the blood-colored halo. According to their previous agreement, Su Yi knew that the Duanmu Shaoman should be waiting for him 20,000 meters away. If the blood sword fruit were to take shape, there would be immeasurable consequences. This was something that could not be delayed. This was a bet that he had proposed. No matter what, he had to help the Duanmu Shaoman get rid of the blood sword fruit. When he thought of this, Su Yi shouted. In a split second, Su Yi's body was surrounded by white divine light. The evil aura of the heavenly Fey ancient scripture had already turned into spatial ripples that spread out in layers. Immediately, a mystical light spread in his eyes as the fiery red wings on his back flapped incessantly. Wind and thunder clanged as the sound of metal rang endlessly. At the same time, the saber beam had already arrived. The saber beam's extremely sharp and ear-piercing sonic booms resounded in the air. It was as if a saber was cutting through water, parting the scarlet seawater to two sides. In the gaps in a vacuum, the blood-colored halo shimmered as it emitted a buzzing sound from time to time. Bang! Su Yi's hands that held Heavenly Star Shock Soul were extremely tight. The light in his eyes was firm and determined. Instantly, the saber light brought about a wave of thunderous sound, engulfing Zhou Kong's desolate and fierce aura. Boom! The two collided as a terrifying bloody aura and a shocking sonic boom permeated every corner of the space. A massive shock wave emanated from the blood-colored halo. The light dimmed for a moment before it suddenly expanded. Immediately, the smell of blood filled the air, causing one's heart to turn cold. Buzz! The shock wave spread out wildly with the halo as the center. A cold yin qi suddenly awakened. It was like a huge palm from the depths of hell, forcing Su Yi to retreat. Su Yi's body trembled slightly. Seeing that the situation was not good, he immediately used his saber to protect himself. With a few flips, he split open the blood qi. His figure retreated explosively, and after a few twists and turns in the air, he once again used the rising Yao's 100 transformation steps. His figure continued to rise up, and a monstrous killing intent at the corner of his mouth outlined a cold arc. The blood-red halo in the distance was still glowing with an evil light. Circle after circle, there was no movement at all. If I can't break it open with one strike, then I'll break it a few more times. I don't believe you won't explode. Su Yi roared. Su Yi, who was standing in the air, had a terrifying aura around him. The saber light in his hand suddenly stretched out and tore the space apart. In the next moment, Su Yi swung 5 more heavenly astral saber lights in a row, instantly crushing the blood-colored chi ring with a thunderous force. The 5 saber auras were more than 100 meters long. They instantly turned the space of blood chi upside down. The huge blood chi turned into a giant red hand and struck out from afar, trying to grab Su Yi. Kill! The saber auras pierced through the air, and the 5 saber auras instantly merged into one. Su Yi roared. The saber auras of earth, wood, water, and fire were enhanced by the 4 elements of Yuan Qi. It was as if they were going to devour everything in the space into nothingness. They could only watch as the temperature in the air continued to rise. The blood qi surged to 100 meters away, and the 2 dragon-like energies collided in the air. Extremely terrifying heaven and earth energy surged out from all directions. Su Yi's figure retreated explosively again. The huge shockwave shattered the heaven and earth energy into tiny fragments. Amidst the deafening explosion, the sound of a crack could be heard. Crack! Kid, there's a crack in the red halo. Put more effort into it. Blow it up. The iron soulfish roared. Su Yi muttered to himself as he looked at the blood-colored chi ring in the distance. A crack was indeed a weakness. However, the blood-colored chi ring was so overwhelming that it was impossible to see where the crack was. It was completely drowned out by the murderous aura. The corner of Su Yi's mouth curled up slightly, and his eyes narrowed. Then I'll hit every spot. Su Yi swung the heavenly astral soul in his hand, and the saber spirit seemed to have sensed it as well. The purple demonic light became even brighter, and the golden patterns on the saber spirit were like flowing divine light. It made one's heart tremble for no reason. Bang, bang, bang. 4 soul doppelgangers appeared in front of Su Yi again. Their figures twisted, and they quickly surrounded the blood-colored chi ring in 4 directions. The 4 identical figures had the same aura, and the temperature around them was so high that the air and sea were dried up. Su Yi's main body stood in the air. The heavenly astral soul in his hand emitted a boundless power, and the fiery red wings behind him were shattered. Break for me. The 4 figures began to slash at the blood-colored chi ring at the same time. Like a tsunami, huge red waves of hundreds of meters high surged. Suddenly, a domineering force that seemed to be able to destroy everything bombarded the chi ring. Everywhere it passed, it turned fiery red. In the midst of the terrifying aura that covered the sky and earth, a terrifying fiery red light formed outside the blood-colored chi ring. It turned out to be Su Yi, who was moving at high speed. Every once in a while, Su Yi would change his position and explode again. The incomparably sharp saber light filled the air. From a distance, it seemed to have formed another ring of light. The wind and thunder clanged, and the sound of metal clashed. The continuous sound of sonic booms accompanied by terrifying sparks hundreds of meters high turned the entire broken sword seabed into a world of blood and fire. It suddenly gave people a magnificent and majestic feeling. Under the terrifying high temperature, even the air was trembling slightly, unable to withstand it. Only a few continuous bursting sounds could be heard. The blood-colored light finally burst into the sky along a beautiful arc. Countless tiny blood chi instantly released an incomparably terrifying murderous aura, like powder sprinkled in water, incomparably dense. It's open, Su Yi roared. Immediately, Su Yi's eyes shone brightly. His soul had already locked onto the blood-colored chi ring. At this time, the heavenly star, soul, shocking saber light in his hand once again broke through the air, tearing a gap in the solidified space. Suddenly, the shaking fire wings on his back vibrated, accompanied by the sonorous sound of wind and thunder, smashing the glass-like blood chi crystals into nothingness. Flowing light flew. Su Yi sprinted into the 20,000-meter circle with a leap. Buzz! A shocking explosion sounded. The blood-colored sky bloomed like fireworks and was instantly reduced to nothingness. As soon as he entered the 20,000-meter space, a terrifying and gloomy force instantly spread towards Su Yi. Suddenly, Su Yi felt a buzzing sound in his ears, and his mind was full of the sound of soul impact. Su Yi groaned in pain. He could feel that the soul energy here was boundless to the extreme. After the energy of heaven and earth was drawn, the ripples in the entire space were already distorted. Compared to the broken sword seabed, the blood chi here was already quite thin, and the air was full of murderous aura. Without the cultivation of the origin ancestor realm, it's simply impossible to enter here, Su Yi thought to himself. Chapter 1670. Su Yi couldn't help but be astonished when he spread out his soul and scanned the entire terrain. The place where the bloodsword fruits were located was like a valley. The empty space and the incomparably large basin made Su Yi think that he was on land. Mountains and seas have always been inverted. The land we're on now might have been the sea, and the sea might have been the land back then. The power of creation is endless. This world isn't what you think it is. Some people can change the sky with a flip of their hand. Some can make mountains and rivers float with a flick of their finger. And some can turn the stars upside down in the blink of an eye. It's actually so powerful. So he couldn't help but sigh in his heart. This kind of ability was simply unimaginable. If you live in our era, you would know how great that era was. The iron soulfish snorted, full of pride. The girl you're looking for has already arrived. If I'm not wrong, her ability should be between heaven and man. You have to be careful. Don't be a hindrance. The iron soulfish said solemnly. Between heaven and man? Yes, between heaven and man, there's a realm called the Origin Sky Realm. It's the transitional realm for mortals to break through the heavenly realm. I don't know how you guys define it, but the definition of cultivation is very profound. In the past 10,000 years, I've only seen a few people who could break through the Origin Sky Realm. Perhaps your realm is too low, so you won't understand. Go and find that girl first. That girl will tell you in the future. Sui nodded heavily and looked at the withered valley like heaven and earth. He looked up and saw that the heaven and earth were sparkling and clear, like the horizon. The blood-red light was accompanied by the light of the water, illuminating the entire valley in a strange way. The world was full of wonders. Sui immediately believed that his martial path would be incomparably wondrous in the future. He wanted to try everything in this world. Heavenly realm. What was the heavenly realm? What kind of world was that? Sui couldn't help but recall the era described by the soul puppet. Immediately, a seemingly solid energy crazily spread out behind Sui. His skin and meridians seemed to be invisibly pulled, and he couldn't help but take a step forward. Dang dang. Sui was greatly alarmed as he steadied himself. The iron soulfish said softly, "This is a sign that the blood sword fruit has taken shape. The bloody evil aura has been completely absorbed and is now absorbing the energy of heaven and earth." Immediately, Sui raised his eyebrows and circulated the art of controlling the heavens and the illusory heaven-white dragon cannon, trying his best to pull back the soul in his mind. The rising Yao's 100 transformation steps started to circulate rapidly, and the surrounding withered space rippled due to the boundless power of heaven and earth. Compared to the outside, the air here was much thinner. Sui took a deep breath and activated Cloud Shadow, treading frost. First, he quickly retracted his aura. Then he turned into a ray of light and rushed towards the center of the valley. After flying for several hundred meters, Sui could see a huge figure crawling several thousand meters away. Instantly, he could feel his soul being affected by something. A rumbling sound resounded in the distance, and the exploding black, evil aura instantly impacted the heaven and earth. After finding a huge rock and retracting his aura, Sui could clearly see the silhouette of a huge figure emerging from the center of the valley. It was actually a blood-red demonic dragon. The towering crimson dragon was enormous, and its entire body seemed to have been carved out of crimson jade. Layer after layer of translucent crystal, and each of its scales was flowing with dazzling crimson light beads. The huge body circled the heaven and earth, and its ferocious eyes instantly widened. Immediately after, the surrounding space suddenly darkened, as if all the light in the space had been swallowed, and a fierce wind blew. "Rumble, woman, this domain lord will give you one last chance. Offer up your soul. This domain lord will spare your life." The blood-red demonic dragon's expression was filled with arrogance as it looked at Duanmu Xiaoman in front of it with interest. "Palace Lord Duanmu is there. Where are the blood sword fruits?" Sui looked at the blood-red demonic dragon that had already taken shape. Its vast blood aura was far from what he had encountered before. Its long, steel-like tail was coiled up on a small mound, swaying back and forth. It seemed to be in an extremely good mood. Duanmu Xiaoman, who was floating in the air, was like a fairy as she stared at the blood-red dragon in front of her. Hearing the demonic dragon's words, her eyes were filled with anger as she roared, "Little creature, how dare you be so presumptuous in my heavenly soul competition? You dare to call yourself a domain lord in front of me. You must be tired of living." "Ha ha ha." The blood dragon opened its bloody eyes, and its eyes were filled with surprise as it looked up to the sky and said, "Human, this domain lord likes you. You are the first human who dares to speak to me like this. Your appearance is not bad. Be my first wife after the demon heavenly realm." As soon as he finished speaking, the blood-red demonic dragon's huge bloody claw gently swept over, and a huge flaming tongue shot out. As the flames sprayed out, a terrifying temperature instantly spread to the heart. Even Su-yi, who was more than 1,000 meters away, felt extremely uncomfortable on his skin and meridians. Not good. This little demonic dragon has already reached the peak of the demon realm and is close to the half-step demon heavenly realm. The iron soulfish took in a breath of cold air, and his eyes immediately became extremely cold. Looking at the red lightning bolt that streaked across his eyes, the soul puppet's voice trembled for the first time. Ding! A crisp sound came from Duanmu, Xiaomon's hand, and a blue streak of light shot out more than 1,000 meters, wrapping around the blood dragon's red streak with an extremely powerful momentum. Duanmu Xiaomon's eyes were cold as she looked at the blood-red dragon in front of her, like a lonely snow lord. She said faintly, "Evil dragon, you are courting death. PFFF, PFFF, PFFF." Like a bubble being popped, a long dragon roar instantly resounded. Within the vast space filled with black, killing intent, the red streak of light that was more than 1,000 meters long was twisted into a fried dough twist. As Duanmu Xiaomon's body was sent flying, a powerful and terrifying energy exploded in the space. Boom! The sky was filled with raging winds and tiny sparks. In the dark and obscure space, the energy of heaven and earth was rapidly stirred up, and the blood aura that seemed to have substance surged like lava, crazily spreading out. In an instant, monstrous explosions that sounded like 9 heavenly thunders rang out one after another, like a series of thunderclaps. Su-yi and the iron soulfish's faces were filled with pain. The blood aura in their bodies was rapidly surging, and their ears were filled with a buzzing sound. In their minds, the heavenly origin demonic soul was like a lonely boat floating in a vast ocean, swaying unsteadily. This was the first time Su-yi felt that his soul was being suppressed. If this continued, his soul would definitely be damaged. This battle between half-step demon heavenly realm experts is not something I can participate in. Chapter 1671. Su-yi gritted his teeth. Looking at the godlike battle before him, Su-yi suddenly felt his own insignificance, like a grain of sand in the vast ocean, a speck of dust floating in the sky. Only Su-yi, who was at the scene, could understand the shock that came from the battle between the bloody aura and the terrifying power. This little girl seems to be very close to the half-step Yuan-Tian realm. They are on par with each other. Could it be that I was wrong? I thought she was still in the Yuan-Tian realm. The iron soulfish said thoughtfully. The ripples in the surrounding space seemed to have solidified and warped. The heart of the iron soul puppet shuddered, and he said, "This blood dragon has absorbed so many dead spirits in the broken sword ocean. It is close to the half-step celestial monster level, and it is waiting for the blood sword fruit to take shape before it can advance to the celestial monster level. At that time, we will have no other choice." Hiss! The blood dragon's ferocious eyes widened, revealing an extremely shocked expression. Its eyes were filled with an incomparably fanatical blood-red aura, and it was extremely excited. The 2 nostrils that were as deep as the abyss were breathing out hot air like the eruption of a 10,000-year-old volcano. "Human, you are very good. You are very close to the half-step Yuan-Tian realm. I will give you 2 choices. Be devoured by me, or be my wife." The blood dragon did not want to give up. Its hot breath created a terrifying temperature that spread across the entire area. Su-yi's vision blurred. He immediately circulated his yuan qi and used the art of driving the heavens to control the violent fluctuations in his soul. Only then did his face become red again. Phew! This evil dragon is AF** King Pervert. The iron soulfish frowned. The blood dragon's breath was also very uncomfortable for the spirit beasts. This evil dragon has absorbed so many souls. If it can possess Palace Master Duanmu, the heavenly demon realm will be much safer. Souls of the dead are the remnants of the desires of living beings. Desire is the foundation of living beings, so naturally, their thoughts are similar to that of ordinary people. This baby is so beautiful that anyone would be tempted. Aren't you tempted as well? Suyi's nose twitched as he yelled at the entrance. I'm not tempted. Humph. You said the same thing to Yunjing. I'm telling you, if you do as I say, the two of you might be able to get out of here alive. This evil dragon was filled with blood energy. If it fought with its life on the line, it would not be fun. There is no doubt that both sides would suffer. At that time, you'll also die. Suyi focused his gaze and saw that the blood dragon had already materialized. Its entire body was covered with blood-red, translucent scales. Its entire body was crawling in the middle of the valley. The aura of a half-step heavenly demon was as vast as the stars in the sky. It carried a bloodthirsty and domineering aura. The extremely dense pressure caused the space to distort. This kind of soul pressure, ordinary people would probably be scared out of their wits if they got close. Suyi's eyes were serious. Chi-Chi, Duanmu Xiaoman's snow-white and flawless clothes were instantly lifted by the fiery breath, and the demonic dragon's aura immediately soared. They greedily looked at Duanmu Xiaoman's faintly discernible beautiful curves. The thin veil on her chest seemed to float away like floating clouds. Immediately, the entire world was filled with the sound of the demon dragon swallowing its saliva. Demonic dragon, I want you to kill yourself. Looks like you're courting death after all. Duanmu Xiaoman shouted. The atmosphere was very cold, as if she was a heavenly girl who had been banished to the mortal world. A bright light shone behind her, and a wave of soul energy immediately spread out between the sky and the earth. The strange soul energy seemed to have materialized into an extremely huge light beam. The mysterious patterns on the light beam instantly made Suyi, who was behind the huge rock, tremble. Suyi's heart trembled violently. It was as if he was looking at a heavenly beast. The vast, illusory image of heaven and earth was very vague, but it was extremely old and heavy. In an instant, Suyi was conquered by it, and he was stunned on the spot. The aura of a half-step Yuan Tian cultivator can actually reach such a level. Suyi looked at Duanmu Xiaoman, who was standing in the air. Her hair was fluttering in the air, and there was an extremely beautiful luster on her neck. However, no matter how much blood and sand flew around, they still couldn't get close to Duanmu Xiaoman. With the change of the hand seals, a trace of extremely cold, killing intent condensed in Duanmu Xiaoman's eyes. Her body moved lightly, and immediately, a soul-trembling aura filled the entire dark valley. Coo-coo! The blood-red demonic dragon was not scared. Instead, it was happy. Its hot breath surrounded Duanmu Xiaoman. Suddenly, its body, which was like a small mountain on the ground, stood up high. It was at least 1,000 meters tall. Its wretched and lustful eyes were cast on Duanmu Xiaoman, and it said sarcastically, "Great, you are still a virgin. Give it to me. Give it to me. Human, I want to possess you. Be the fairy under my crotch." The blood-red, demonic dragon instantly roared. Its voice trembled, and one could see the excitement in its expression. The deafening roar of the dragon caused the entire valley to tremble. Huge rocks were shaken, and the might of the mountains and the earth seemed to have cracked. The space around Suyi began to tremble. This demonic dragon is really despicable. How dare it? Suyi couldn't help but curse. Even Suyi, who was a man, couldn't listen to it anymore. It was really vulgar to the extreme. Even though he had lived 2 lives, it was impossible for him to be as shameless as this demonic dragon. This demonic dragon is waiting for the blood-sword fruit to form. With Duanmu Xiaoman here to help it reach the half-step heavenly Yao realm, why wouldn't it be happy? Duanmu Xiaoman raised her head, and her proud twin peaks rose and fell slightly. It was obvious that she was angry. You are courting death. Boom! The light screen immediately shot out from Duanmu Xiaoman's fingers towards the blood-red demonic dragon. Duanmu Xiaoman shouted. Her entire body seemed to be wrapped in flowing light. Her feather dress fluttered in the wind, and a terrifying soul-spirit pressure blasted towards the blood-red, demonic dragon. Like an inescapable net, a loud shout turned into a sound wave that enveloped the blood-red, demonic dragon. Qila, Sui couldn't help but tremble. This Duanmu Xiaoman's strength was far beyond his imagination. Human, you are too naive. The blood-red, demonic dragon roared. Following which, a foul demonic dragon roar resounded through the sky. The smell of blood filled the air, and countless blood claws intertwined with Duanmu Xiaoman. The blood-red demonic dragon waved its claws, and the blood claws that filled the sky collided with the light screen. Pung pung. The huge light screen enveloped the blood-red demonic dragon like a metal net. No matter how the blood claws struggled, Duanmu Xiaoman's expression didn't change. From between her eyebrows, a few more soul spirits burst out and shot towards the blood-red demonic dragon. The vast aura filled the sky, and everyone's soul spirits trembled. Pung pung pung. The blood claws filled the sky. Just as the light screen was about to collapse, the blood-red demonic dragon's blood chi surged upwards, and a magma-like flame burst into the sky. Chapter 1672. The blood-red demonic dragon's eyes trembled as it looked at Duanmu Xiaoman with great desire. Human, you are no match for me. Submit to me, and we will be able to enjoy eternal bliss. Help me become the demon sky supreme. Ha ha ha. The terrifying sound wave was accompanied by a scorching heat. The water vapor in the entire valley began to evaporate, and there was almost no water vapor left in the spatial ripples. Su-yi, who was extremely thirsty, licked his lips as the killing intent in his eyes condensed. This evil dragon is courting death, Su-yi said viciously. In the blink of an eye, the blood-red dragon continued to roar, and its absolute soul pressure shattered the last bit of Duanmu Xiaoman's light barrier. Bang! The white light dissipated, and the clouds overlapped. The fairy-like Duanmu Xiaoman's soul power surged again, and the blue light transformed into the image of a huge blue divine bird that was over 1,000 meters long. Duanmu Xiaoman's soul power surged again, and she let out a loud roar. Her aura had already reached the sky origin realm. Is it a phoenix? Su-yi looked at the blue divine bird that stretched across the sky and couldn't help but be slightly surprised. The blue divine bird's body was crystal clear, and its feathers were snow white. Its eyelids were facing upward, and its tail was extremely long. It dragged along an extremely long snow-white collar as it looked down proudly at the heavens. His bright and spirited eyes were filled with a holy and resplendent light, looking extremely mystical and extraordinary. The huge demonic beast flapped its wings, and the entire world instantly became cold. A domineering and holy aura swept across the entire area, as if it was cleansing the world of all impurities. Squeak! A loud and clear cry of a divine beast rang out as it flapped its wings. It was so domineering that it seemed as if it wanted to suppress everything. The crystal clear blue light brought with it a monstrous storm, and countless terrifying gusts of wind were hidden within it. Layer upon layer, it instantly closed in on the blood-red demonic dragon's protective blood energy. The light instantly tore apart the blood-red demonic dragon's blood energy space, and the dark and withered valley gradually became moist. The gentle yet sharp soul pressure instantly rushed into Su-yi's mind, and he couldn't help but tremble. This little girl can actually transform into an ice swan. The iron soulfish gasped. The ice phoenix divine bird was also one of the ancient divine beasts. It was of the same origin as the phoenix. According to the ancient saying, a red phoenix was a phoenix and a blue one was a blue one. A flap of its wings could stir up the wind and clouds, and another flap of its wings could stir up the clouds and rain. It was one of the most powerful divine birds of the water and phoenix attributes. Su-yi also noticed that the shadow behind Duanmu Xiaoman didn't simply summon the Ice Lawn. Just like his Emperor Sparrow, it had a contract with the Ice Lawn. It must have obtained the Ice Lawn's essence blood to be able to do this. Phoenixes have 9 children, but there is only one Ice Lawn in this world. However, it is as famous as the phoenix, so one can imagine how powerful it is. It's just that. The Iron Soulfish added, but hesitated. It's just that why are there so many ancient divine beasts in this Tianyin continent? Su-yi said to the Iron Soulfish. Su-yi's sharp brows also started to turn serious. Now that the Ice Lawn had appeared, together with the Golden Dragon, Phoenix, Spirit Cat, and Great Rock, it meant that there were still so many ancient divine beasts after the primordial calamity. It was simply unbelievable. I don't think so. This Ice Lawn's aura is simple and unadorned. It's even stronger than mine. It might be the only Ice Lawn in this world, and there's no possibility of it having any descendants. It shouldn't be something that only exists in this realm. Not from this realm? Could there be other realms other than the Tianyin continent? Su-yi asked. At this moment, the blood-red demonic dragon had also sensed that Duanmu Xiaoman was unusual. The heaven and earth's blood qi was starting to run out, and its soul trembled slightly. Human, who exactly are you? You've been hiding your strength. You've actually reached the half-step origin sky realm. The Iron Soulfish narrowed its eyes and nodded slightly. It looked at the monstrous Duanmu Xiaoman and said seriously, "This girl is indeed at the half-step origin sky realm. She's already infinitely close to the origin sky realm. She's already very rare. She's definitely the strongest human I've ever seen. There's only one heavenly maiden like her. Half-step origin sky realm. Then what about the quality of her soul? Isn't she the palace master of the heavenly palace? Why is her martial cultivation so strong?" Su-yi looked at the Duanmu Xiaoman in front of him. She was like a god, and it was simply too shocking. The origin sky realm, the Duanmu Xiaoman, had actually reached the legendary origin sky realm. Her soul cultivation is also not to be underestimated. I don't really understand, but based on the intensity of the soul light screen just now, according to your standards, she should be at the early stages of the 6th stage. An early stage, 6th stage soul controller. That was already the strongest existence outside of the legendary 7th stage soul controllers. This Duanmu Xiaoman was truly too abnormally strong. Su-yi couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. High up in the sky, the Duanmu Xiaoman was still as cold as ice, but the aura around her had already reached an extremely profound level. She glanced at the crimson demonic dragon. "Demonic dragon, you can go die now." The Duanmu Xiaoman's crescent brows sank as she said coldly, "Wait." The demonic dragon immediately panicked. Just as it was about to speak, all kinds of soul energy sounds swept towards it. Duanmu Xiaoman's hand seals were formed, and a crisp screech was heard. Once again, the curtain of light rose to the sky, and the shadow of an ice-blue divine bird grew bigger and bigger, more and more terrifying, and roared out. In the blink of an eye, the Ice Lawn's body was covered in frost, and its eyes were incomparably cold. It instantly suppressed the crimson demonic dragon with incomparable power. Pung, pung, pung. Within the dark space, the blood energy suddenly condensed, and the murderous aura, along with the incomparably holy and domineering aura of destruction, turned into nothingness. The crimson demonic dragon's fiery gaze constantly flickered, and soon after, all the blood energy in the world crazily surged out. Boom! The crimson hurricane madly spun, and endless crimson light burst out. Black, baleful aura lingered on it, and it sprinkled down from the sky. Without a doubt, the crimson demonic dragon had already begun to fight with all its might. The crimson demonic dragon's light was actually not inferior to the Ice Lawn's. The half-step heavenly demon, realm blood, red demonic dragon used all of its abilities, and in front of the already weak human, It was actually able to fight evenly with the half-step heavenly origin stage Duanmu Xiaoman for the time being. At the same time, the energy of heaven and earth swept across the sky, and vast, mighty, and incomparably holy soul energy spread out. The crimson demonic dragon began to retreat step by step, but its huge body was still protecting the small mound behind it, not daring to damage it in the slightest. Since this despicable dragon is protecting that mound, the blood sword fruits should be in there. Su-yi pondered slightly and said, "And, although this demonic dragon's mouth is filthy, it is actually waiting for the blood sword fruits to form. If it swallows the blood sword fruits, it will definitely reach the heavenly demon realm, and we won't be able to escape today." This girl was forced to use this method because she wants to end this battle quickly. "Boy, if you want to help her, do you dare to take a risk?" The iron soulfish said. Chapter 1673. Steal the blood sword fruit. Su-yi took a deep breath as his eyes flashed. He naturally knew what the iron soulfish was talking about. If he let Duanmu Xiaoman's ice wand entangle the blood-colored demonic dragon, the two of them would be evenly matched for a while. If he could successfully obtain the blood sword fruit and cut off the blood supply to the demonic dragon, he would definitely be able to break this stalemate. Bang, bang, bang. Su-yi stared at the horizon with a fiery gaze. His eyes gradually began to emit an extremely fierce fighting spirit. The blue ice luan above his head glowed like a sunset. As his blood and chi surged, the light was boundless, and the sound of wind and thunder resounded incessantly. Looking at the huge blood-colored dragon in the distance, it continuously circled around the small mound while fighting with the ice luan. Soul energy and bloody killing intent surged out at full force, bringing about a terrifying and shocking power. The power that swept across the sky could swallow anyone who came near at any time. Good, I'll go get the blood sword fruit. Su-yi's eyes were resolute as he stared at the small mound at the tail of the demonic dragon. Su-yi took a deep breath. At this time, under the suppression of Duanmu Xiaoman's ice luan, the surrounding area was filled with water origin energy, making it convenient for Su-yi to use cloud shadow frost steps. The first layer of misty flower mirror snow was used to hide one's aura. The second layer of wind dragon shadow was used to constantly change one's movement technique. At this time, Su-yi also had the illusory sky white dragon code, so his speed had reached an unimaginable level. Only Su-yi knew that ever since he came out of the mountain after the earthquake, his compatibility with water origin energy had reached an incomparably miraculous level. Right now, a sharp ice crystal path was laid out in an instant. Endless blue light exploded. Su-yi stepped on the ice crystals like a ghost, drawing out countless terrifying illusions in the air. As the illusions dissipated, Su-yi's figure rapidly approached the area where the two were fighting. As soon as he landed, Su-yi, who was almost blown away, immediately used the Origin Supreme Art and Golden Dragon Aura at the same time. His eyes shone with a dazzling light as he barely managed to stop himself. Huff, huff. Su-yi tried to stop the surging chi and blood in his body. After forcefully suppressing it, he panted heavily in his mind. The billowing chi and soul pressure in his ears poured into his skin and meridians. He was in danger of exploding at any moment. Wong! The pattern of the five-clawed golden dragon once again spread to Su-yi's limbs and torso. The mysterious power lingered between his elbows, and the dazzling light gradually stabilized Su-yi's body, making him as immovable as a rock. At the same time, his hand seals changed continuously. Origin energy from the great void sea filled the wide meridians in his body, gradually filling them up. The vast origin energy took away a large portion of the soul pressure, and Su-yi gradually recovered. In a battle of this level, the slightest carelessness will consign me to eternal damnation. Su-yi's soul trembled. For the first time, he felt that there was a battle that he could not even touch. A feeling of insignificance arose in his heart. In Su Yi's view, this might be the new beginning of Su Yi's martial path. It had always been Su Yi who looked down on others. He learned faster than others, became stronger earlier than others, bullied those of the same level, and was invincible among those of the same age. But in front of a truly powerful enemy, he could only hide his aura and helplessly try not to be discovered. Raising his head to look at the sky, he could faintly hear the intertwining sounds of turbid dragon roars and clear whistles. It was as though a battle between an ancient god of death and a god was about to break out in the next moment. The heavenly origin demon soul that was rolling like the sun rose and fell violently, as though it was breathing. Sui knew that this kind of pressure that could pierce through clouds and split rocks was a battle between supreme beings. This was the true peak of the martial path. He watched helplessly as a pure blue ice luan spread its wings and suppressed the world. The huge wings of wind flapped, and ice beads filled the air. An extremely terrifying and tyrannical aura surged through the world, as though it wanted to cleanse the world of impurities. Palace Master Duanmu, I'll go get the bloodsword fruit. Delay the demonic dragon for a while more. Su Yi quickly closed the distance between the two and transmitted his voice to Duanmu Xiaoman, who was fully focused on the battle. At this moment, Duanmu Xiaoman's clothes fluttered in the wind. She was like a fairy with a lonely swan. She gently raised her hand, and when she bowed her head, there was a loud sound of wind and thunder. The surging pressure could instantly destroy the entire world. The demonic dragon below was also surging violently. The blood-colored demonic dragon that was gradually transforming into a beast roared with all its might, and it was constantly emitting pressure to resist the powerful existence in the sky. As it waved its claws, waves gradually rose. Strong winds accompanied by a demonic killing intent tore apart the incomparably dark spatial cracks around its body. Sui, why are you here? Duanmu Xiaoman was in disbelief. She didn't expect Su Yi to be able to reach a depth of 20,000 meters. She also didn't expect Su Yi to make such a bold decision. Bang! Hearing Su Yi's voice, Duanmu Xiaoman was a little absent-minded. Her clear eyes suddenly stared blankly. Seeing the opportunity, the blood-colored demonic dragon shot out a blood-colored light, wave energy from its mouth. An extremely rotten smell suddenly soared into the sky like an evil demonic might from the Nine Nether Abyss. The blood-colored light wave instantly rushed to Duanmu Xiaoman's shoulder. Ku, the high-temperature flame produced when it cut through the sky and earth, in addition to the originally cold blood-colored light wave, was enough to make anyone's heart palpitate. In an instant, Duanmu Xiaoman tilted her head, and a strand of her beautiful hair and white clothes were directly torn. The huge figure of the ice luan in front of her quickly closed in. Its terrifying and overbearing aura swept across the sky, bringing with it countless wind waves and water pillars that directly dispersed the blood-colored light wave. Hiss! The area where she was cut immediately revealed her snow-white, delicate skin. The wound was opening up at a speed visible to the naked eye. The pitch-black wound was suffused with a deep red color, and it quickly began to rot and decay. Duanmu Xiaoman's hand seals quickly formed, and her mouth seemed to be chanting. She tapped on her own meridians, and a mouthful of dark blood quickly spurted out from Duanmu Xiaoman's mouth. Female human, how is it? Did you enjoy using this region, Lord's dragon blood? Do you already have feelings for this region, Lord? Kiki. A sinister laugh came from the blood-colored, demonic dragon's mouth. It was like the roar of an ancient demonic beast in the sky, and immediately brought about another spatial storm. This demonic dragon's blood is strangely poisonous and incomparably evil. You have to be careful of this little girl. The iron soulfish clicked his tongue twice and shook his head slightly. Seeing everything clearly in the fog and mirror snow, Su Yi, who was hiding his aura, became even more anxious. Soon after, he roared in a low voice. Duanmu, how are you? Puchi, Duanmu Xiaoman didn't reply, and only sprayed a large mouthful of black blood mist into the air. Duanmu Xiaoman's blurry eyes instantly widened. Her gaze was still sharp, and droplets of water surrounded her cherry lips, which immediately became clean and flawless. Chapter 1674. Seeing the opportunity, the ice wand immediately flew up and flapped its giant wings, causing a series of space ripples to spread out in all directions. In just a few rounds, the ice wand had forcefully knocked the blood-red demonic dragon back down. The two of them were entangled in a battle in the distance. Their demonic auras collided, and along with a mysterious force, the entire world began to distort. There seems to be something wrong with this little girl's half-step Yuan Ti on stage. The ice wand's attack is also in a stalemate. The demonic dragon's demonic energy is getting stronger and stronger. The iron soulfish turned around and said to Su-Yi, "Young man, you need to hurry up. I'm afraid that the blood sword fruit will take shape soon. After that, the blood-red demonic dragon will be much more powerful than this." The iron soulfish began to get anxious. Inside the mortal gate, it who was in the same body as Su-Yi was enduring the torrential soul pressure. It, who was already very weak, was suffering even more. Bang, bang, bang. Duanmu Xiaoman's jade-like feet tapped lightly, swiftly dodging the blood dragon's pursuit. In the midst of the peerless wind and waves, her soft hand struck out, constantly producing golden leopard gales, like a torrential flood, destroying everything in its path. With just a slight scan, Duanmu Xiaoman immediately knew where Sui was. He was less than a kilometer away from the small hill. She could feel that Su Yi's thin and weak shoulders were as firm as a rock. Immediately, a trace of surprise appeared in Duanmu Xiaoman's eyes. She looked into the distance, then turned around and whispered to Chu Yunsheng, "Go! You need to go. It's too dangerous here." Bang! The incomparably resplendent blue storm and the blood-red claw came at the same time. The vast and mighty soul pressure that seemed to cover the sky and cover the sun instantly surged towards the distant Su-Yi in an instant. As if he had been hit, Su-Yi's demon god battlesuit instantly covered his entire body. After taking a solid hit, Su-Yi was swept up by the powerful energy storm and slammed heavily into the ground behind him. The crumbling ground had long dried up and cracked. After the violent collision, a huge ravine instantly formed, spreading out like a spiderweb. Su-Yi, who had fallen from the sky, stood up with great difficulty. The part of his Fey god battle armor that was in contact with the ground already had a crack. Pucci! Su-Yi's eyes were misty, and a mouthful of blood suddenly spurted out. He slowly wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and a boundless fighting spirit and anger suddenly appeared in his heart. "I'm not leaving. Those who came together should leave together. I've done the 20,000 meters bet. Naturally, you have to go out with me and guide me." Su-Yi's bloodshot eyes were incomparably red, as if there was a flash of light. He stared at Duanmu Xiaoman in the distance, who was like a banished fairy. The light around her body flickered. Hearing Su-Yi's strong words, Duanmu Xiaoman's figure slightly stagnated. Her mind turned at lightning speed. Duanmu Xiaoman fought and scolded softly. "Take care of yourself first. I won't stop you if you die, but don't hinder me here." High up in the sky, the blood-red demon dragon's hot breath was like a volcanic eruption. The blood-red aura that shot out high up in the sky corroded the surrounding like magma. Noticing Duanmu Xiaoman's too absent-mindedness, he gradually stopped his attacks. He turned his head and looked back. His terrifying and ferocious face was like the underworld. He said, "Beauty, why are you still so distracted when fighting with me? See if I don't catch you." "Oh no!" Su-Yi and the Iron Soulfish shouted in their hearts at the same time. Their auras had already been locked onto by the blood-red demon dragon. Under the terrifying pressure, Su-Yi seemed to have solidified again. The blood-red demon dragon's eyes flickered. In the blink of an eye, an incomparably vast energy shot out from its eyes and enveloped Su Yi's location. It searched back and forth, but didn't find any trace of him. I seem to have sensed a trace of another creature's aura. Did some little thing barge in? The blood-red demon dragon's sinister aura patrolled the space. It continuously waved its blood-red claw in the air, but its eyes were still scanning the vast space. Bang! All of a sudden, Duanmu Xiaoman in the sky continuously waved her thin veil. The water-blue ribbon in her hand shot out once again. It was like moonlight, but it carried with it the might of the heavens. Die, you bastard! The Ice One also let out a sharp cry at this moment. The dark space was instantly illuminated once again. The water-blue aura of destruction spread out with a momentum that could topple mountains and overturn seas. It descended from the sky and blasted towards the blood-red dragon. Rumble! Under such a terrifying pressure, the blood-red demon dragon once again withdrew its gaze and focused on attacking the Ice One and Duanmu Xiaoman. It said with an incomparably sinister voice, "Beauty, I'll definitely catch you. Let's see how you'll call me. Filthy thing, you deserve to die without a burial place." The Duanmu Xiaoman was already at a loss for words. Her shy eyes trembled incessantly. She took a few deep breaths and directly blasted towards the blood-red demon dragon again. Like rain, the water-blue and wind-blue ribbons of heaven and earth continuously poured onto the blood-red demon dragon's body. The entire valley instantly turned into a sea of blue. The rumbling sound of the explosion was like the explosion of a bomb. It carried a monstrous might that transcended heaven and earth and brought the blood-red demon dragon to the other side of the valley. In the sky, the Duanmu Xiaoman lightly tapped on the ice pearl. It was incomparably vast. Her graceful figure was like a miracle that was wrapped in the vast energy of heaven and earth. Her eyes were as deep as water. She took one last look at Su Yi before quietly withdrawing her moon-like eyes. Her figure floated into the distance, putting some distance between the blood-red demon dragon and Su Yi. What should we do? Should we leave or stay? She already told you to stay out of it. The iron soulfish said softly. Su Yi was currently under the mighty heavenly might of the divine bird. His entire body was throbbing with fear, but at the same time, his blood was boiling with excitement. There was no way he could escape. He also couldn't let a woman cover his escape. Today he had to get the blood sword fruit and kill this evil dragon. Old Tai, let's go. Steal the blood sword fruit, and tell me what to do when we enter. Su Yi shouted as his face twitched. This was definitely the biggest risk Su Yi had ever taken. He couldn't guarantee that he could come out safely, nor could he guarantee that he could obtain the blood sword fruit. Chila. The 3 layers of protection were all activated. The art of driving the heavens and the heavenly Fey ancient scripture armed his heavenly origin demon soul. Immediately, Su Yi's body surged with the illusory sky white dragon cannon. Looking at the distant void, which was trembling violently, Su Yi's figure moved slightly and instantly turned into an afterimage. Run! Seizing the opportunity, Su Yi raised his sword-like eyebrows. When he saw the blood-red dragon's tail leave the small slope, Su Yi turned into a stream of light and rushed into the small slope under the encirclement of the misty flower and mirror snow. Chapter 1675. Completely different from the outside world, the inside of the slope was incomparably quiet. Compared to the bloody rain earlier, it was like a different world. As soon as he entered, he was welcomed by an ancient and natural aura. The faint blood-red color was extremely comfortable, as if the purest energy of heaven and earth had rushed in. The scene in front of him was completely out of Su Yi's expectations. In front of him was an ordinary little mound, without any soul pressure or energy of heaven and earth. It was just like an ordinary cave. The only difference was that there were 7 sparkling and translucent blood-red rings hanging on the walls like blood vessels. Buzz, buzz. The 7 blood-red rings were as thick as a baby's arm, with extremely thick blood flowing inside. They hung in the air between the walls like concentric circles formed by vines. From time to time, there would be extremely mysterious sounds of energy stirring, and the light would flicker. It was very magical. Looking at the center, the tail of the blood-red rings was perpendicular to the center, and it had already grown into a complete sword-shaped fruit. Looking at it carefully, it looked like a blood-red divine sword. The demonic light was accompanied by a vast amount of energy inside the cave. This is the blood sword fruit. It was the first time Sue-Yi had seen such a miraculous fruit. His eyes were wide open as he reached out his hand to feel the power of the blood sword fruit. The iron soulfish nodded heavily and looked at the 7 blood-red rings. Don't be fooled by the fact that there is almost no soul pressure here. These 7 blood-red rings are connected to the blood supply of the entire Broken Sword Ocean. If these 7 blood-red rings exploded at the same time, even 10 Broken Sword Oceans wouldn't be enough to pay for it. After hearing the iron soulfish's words, Sue-Yi immediately withdrew his hand and swallowed a mouthful of saliva. So the blood sword fruit has swallowed all the soul pressure of the entire Broken Sword Ocean. Of course. Moreover, this blood sword fruit is growing so well that there are 7 blood-red rings. This is the first time I have seen such a thing. Sue-Yi couldn't help but be pleasantly surprised. He raised his eyebrows and said, "If even you haven't seen it before, then wouldn't it take 10,000 years for this blood sword fruit to grow? But why can't I feel any blood aura? It's completely different from the outside world." Sue-Yi recalled the iron soulfish's evaluation of the blood sword fruit. He remembered that the blood sword fruit was a fruit produced by the blood sword spirit clan. Apart from being able to make a sword extremely sharp, the sword's direction would also become extremely murderous and had a great bewitching effect on the user. In that case, even if the blood sword fruit wasn't a demonic item, it was an evil item. Just now, the overflowing blood chi in the outside world had caused the entire Broken Sword Ocean to be devoid of life. The death of the monster beasts was the best proof. You're right. The reason why the blood sword fruit was called the blood sword fruit was because it required constant feeding of blood chi. Blood energy was the most basic form of energy for living beings to survive. Naturally, it was the best substance that coincided with the Tao of nature. The yuan chi and soul pressure of a martial artist are all built on the foundation of sufficient blood and chi. It's very difficult for you to let a person with insufficient blood and chi display the greatest effect of a martial skill. Sue-Yi nodded and didn't interrupt the iron soulfish. The Blood Sword Spirit Clan has been growing blood sword fruits for generations. They're bloodthirsty and good at using swords. It's as if they were born for blood and crazy for swords. The iron soulfish looked at the blood sword fruit in front of him, his eyes constantly shining. Seeing that Sue-Yi was still a little confused, the iron soulfish patiently explained. In other words, the blood sword fruit purely uses the yuan chi and soul pressure in the blood chi. The 7 blood rings you see are the 7 filters, and the tip of the sword is another filter. It can remove all the desires, distractions, bitterness, and greed in the blood chi, leaving the purest essence for its own growth. Sue-Yi was still a little confused. The iron soulfish said, "If you understand it this way, the blood sword fruit is both good and evil. There's no distinction between good and bad. It all depends on how the user uses it." With this explanation, Sue-Yi seemed to have understood. Just like his mysterious ball of light, a slight activation could be useful, but excessive use would result in a backlash. Blood only represents the source of its energy, but the quality of the blood sword fruit shows the degree of its ability to filter desires. If a blood sword fruit that doesn't grow well is used on a weapon, the original blood chi will naturally be brought into the new sword spirit. When people's hearts and souls are unstable, naturally, the weapon will easily turn from a holy weapon into a lethal weapon. Sue-Yi nodded slightly and said, "It's not the fruit itself, but the person who plucked it. In the end, it's still a result of people's bewitchment." "Kid, not bad. To be able to understand this much, if there were more people like you, the Bloodsword Spirit clan wouldn't have attracted such a calamity. Calamity? Because of the Bloodsword Spirit clan's unique Bloodsword fruit, more and more people went to ask for it. The more they asked, the more lethal weapons there were. In the end, all the worlds vented their anger on the Bloodsword Spirits, thinking that it was the Bloodsword Spirits who put the curse on them. The Bloodsword Spirit clan originally loved blood and had a bit of evil aura. Coming and going, it actually attracted a calamity. This kind of calamity naturally caused the Bloodsword Spirits to revolt. One of the Bloodsword Spirits defected to the demon race, hoping for protection. This pushed the extinction of the Bloodsword Spirit clan even further. He couldn't help but become angry and resentful. This Bloodsword Spirit clan is really pitiful. To think that they were wiped out for no reason. This is too unjust. After pondering for a while, the Iron Soulfish fiercely said, "What's the big deal about killing aura? How can the heroes of this world shine without killing aura? If they can use killing aura for themselves, they will be successful in every endeavor." He whispered and repeated the Iron Soulfish's words. He was startled and said, "If they can use killing aura for themselves, they will be successful in every endeavor." A hero of this age must have the spirit of an ambitious and ruthless person and the domineering aura of a king. Only in this way can they live up to a man's name. He kept repeating this sentence in his mind. Suddenly, a stream of blood and chi began to roll in his heart. He remembered that day in front of the Su family's gate tower, when he triggered the murderous intent of the broken sword and forced the enemy to retreat. Immediately, a murderous aura and killing aura filled the air. As his blood and chi surged, his voice revealed an unparalleled, domineering aura. In his mind, the scene of bloody flesh and piles of bones began to appear again. Feeling the change in his aura, the Iron Soulfish couldn't help but raise his eyebrows and said, "Kid, why is your killing aura suddenly so cold? What are you thinking about? Quickly withdraw it." He shook his head and tried his best to activate the art of controlling the heavens. His expression gradually returned to normal. He shook his head and said, "I'm thinking about some things from the past. Old Tai, what do you think about the quality of this Bloodsword fruit?" The Iron Soulfish pulled the corner of his mouth and said, "That perverted dragon is so protective of this Bloodsword fruit. Just by looking at the 7 blood rings, you can tell that this is an extremely good Bloodsword fruit." Chapter 1676. "That's perfect. I'll use it to restore one of my heavy swords. That way, that perverted dragon won't be able to take advantage of it." The Iron Soulfish nodded repeatedly. He told that the Bloodsword fruit had to be compatible with the heavy sword at the beginning of its formation to achieve the best results. There wasn't much time left, so he had to seize the opportunity. Following that, took out a heavy, ancient sword that was slightly damaged from the interspatial bag in his arms. As soon as he took it out, a dull thud was heard. As soon as the sword entered his hand, he could not help but stab it straight into the ground. Bang! An extremely deep trench was carved out in the rock-hard ground by the heavy sword. Once the heavy sword was drawn, who could contend against it? All of a sudden, a tsunami-like power filled the air of the cave. The pitch-black sword light tore through the air and instantly annihilated the blood energy from just now. "Be careful. The 7 blood rings must not be broken. Do you want to die?" The Iron Soulfish shouted. He was also shocked. He stared blankly at the blood demon killing god sword, which had unknowingly increased in weight. The simple and unadorned sword didn't have any decorations on it. From this perspective, the blood demon killing god sword looked extremely ordinary. However, it imperceptibly emitted a thick and heavy aura of heaven and earth. Raised his eyebrows and thought to himself, "I didn't expect this old man to have such an aura." During this period of time, his soul and martial strength had increased tremendously. As his cultivation increased, the heavy sword had also increased in weight. Speaking of which, this heavy sword didn't have any grades, but it was strange. It clearly had an extremely strong killing intent, but it was simple and unadorned. Back then, He had relied on this extremely bloody killing intent to repel powerful enemies. Moreover, it would continue to increase in weight as Su Yi's cultivation increased. Just this shocking weight alone wasn't something that an ordinary warrior could lift. Those who could wield it were extremely strong. It was believed that there weren't many people in the 6 continents, 3 continents, and 1 sea who could wield it. The iron soulfish was shocked when a strong gust of wind blew over. He didn't expect that the thin and frail Su Yi would carry such a heavy sword with him. Good heavens! This should be around 7 to 800,000 jin. Even if you can lift it, you might not be able to wield it. It's really disadvantageous to use it in actual combat. Su Yi nodded and said softly, "This sword can be considered as my first partner. Back then, he had also accompanied me through 1,000 dangers and obstacles. Today, I must restore it to its former glory." Looking at such a heavy sword, which was large and slender and peerlessly mighty, Su Yi's blood and qi began to surge once again, and a boiling and scorching battle intent surged unceasingly. As he gripped the hilt of the sword tightly, he could feel that the gore-fiend killing god sword was beginning to react to the blood sword fruit in front of him. "Do you also want to be reborn?" Su Yi smiled. "Chila." As soon as he finished speaking, the gore-fiend killing god sword was pulled up high from the ground. One could feel that Su Yi's entire body was wielding an extremely sharp weapon. The wide meridians in his body were crackling, and the crazily surging spirit energy overflowed like a great river, lingering around his body through his skin. In less than a moment, large amounts of sweat were dripping down his chin. The iron soulfish in the entrance secretly sighed and said, "This kid really likes to challenge things that are difficult." Then, he anxiously called out, "The weight of this heavy sword is too incredible. Are you sure you want to use this sword?" Su Yi didn't care. His eyes were resolute, and he tightly gripped the heavy sword. He clenched his teeth and angrily shouted, "Gore-fiend killing god sword, rise." In an instant, the incomparably black sword light of the gore-fiend killing god sword stirred up a fierce gale in the air. Su Yi raised it up high, and when it came into contact with the air, the sound of metal clashing could be heard. "In that case, follow my method. Circulate the art of controlling the heavens, and use your soul energy to slowly pull out the blood sword fruit. When I say begin, put the 2 sword points against each other." The iron soulfish said in a deep voice. Su Yi stepped on the air and held the heavy sword in his hand, allowing large amounts of sweat to flow down to the ground. Immediately, his back was drenched in sweat, and his mind was greatly shaken. Hearing the soul beast's words, Su Yi couldn't help but curse. "You want me to form a seal with one hand? Why didn't you say so earlier? What's the use of saying so earlier? Have you ever listened to me? Hurry up and stop talking nonsense." The iron soulfish licked its lips and thought to itself, "Stinking brat. If you didn't say that this is your old buddy, I would definitely snatch this heavy sword of yours and have a good meal." Blue veins popped out as he angrily shouted. Su Yi's right hand, which was holding the blood demon's sword, had already begun to tremble slightly. As he panted heavily, his left hand began to slowly form a seal. Forming a seal with one hand was already difficult for the average direct disciple of the Heavenly Command Palace, let alone Su Yi, who was riding a tiger and couldn't back down. The mighty energy around him shook the air, and his long robe began to flutter. He watched as the 7 blood rings grew dimmer and dimmer, and the gore-fiend killing god sword shook more and more violently, as if it could sense the existence of the blood sword fruit. Whoosh whoosh, under the white divine light, the art of controlling the heavens gradually began to spread over the entire cave. Su Yi, who was already extremely heavy, had a fiery look in his eyes as he shouted in a low voice, "Blood sword fruit here." Following the change of a mysterious hand seal, a blood-colored light flashed in front of his eyes. Immediately, he could feel boundless blood energy surging through his meridians. A strange energy quietly seeped into every cell in his body. Endure it. The blood sword fruit is about to take shape. You have to transfer your blood energy into the heavy sword in a moment. The iron soulfish wasn't feeling too good either. His blood energy was surging, and he could feel that Su Yi's bones, muscles, blood vessels, and meridians were as if they were thrown into a pool of blood hell. All the bones in his body began to crackle crazily, and golden patterns once again appeared on every inch of Su Yi's skin. A five-clawed golden dragon appeared on his torso, and a huge golden dragon gradually appeared behind him. The domineering and ferocious aura combined with the boundless blood energy made Su Yi's black hair flutter in the wind. He was like a god of death, incomparably valiant. The terrifying energy made Su Yi instantly feel that he was wrapped in a thick and strange blood chi. Walala walala. The blood chi was fusing with Su Yi's blood chi. It was crazily and agilely swimming in the wide divine, profound spirit veins like a flood dragon. It was galloping in all directions, spreading a vast amount of energy between heaven and earth. In this world, only Su Yi can be such a vessel for the blood pool. The heaven-defying divine spiritual veins, the powerful bones, and the strength of his body. In the future, no one in the human world can match him. The iron soulfish's mouth slightly curved. The soul puppet beast was extremely weak after being stained by the blood energy. Its face was pale, but it still couldn't suppress the excitement in its heart. After the blood energy had circulated in Su Yi's body, countless cells and joints had already cracked to the maximum extent. The terrifying energy made Su Yi's body tremble slightly. Chapter 1677. Every part of Su Yi's skin and eyes had turned completely blood red. The astonishing energy was causing Su Yi's body to undergo rapid changes. His limbs, bones, veins, and meridians were all expanding continuously. Suddenly, Su Yi's entire body was blood red. An incomparably high temperature instantly surged into Su Yi's 7 apertures. White smoke rose. Only Su Yi himself knew that he was no different from being submerged in magma. His dantian was operating rapidly. An irrepressible pressure suddenly rushed out of his dantian. He immediately shouted, "Ayo! Bang!" An overwhelming amount of energy surged through the air. Blood chi radiated in all directions, bringing with it a terrifying force that was directly annihilated above the void. A few blood-colored clouds appeared at the top of the simple and unadorned cave, but they didn't spread much before disappearing. Su Yi emerged. The iron soulfish roared. Su Yi, who was immersed in the sea of blood, heard the soul beast roar. In the sea of blood, he exerted all his strength to activate the art of controlling the heavens. The blood sword fruit slowly changed its direction and flew towards the tip of the godly killing sword. Without hesitation, Su Yi exerted force with his elbow and slowly changed the direction of the godly killing sword that was raised above his head. When the tips of the two swords came into contact with each other, the world seemed to be affected by something. Bloody evil chi surged wildly, surging endlessly within the cave like a hurricane. Rumble. Su Yi could clearly feel that the boiling bloody aura of the blood sword fruit was flowing into the godly killing sword through his godly mystical spiritual veins. Around the tip of the sword, little by little, strange energy began to gather. Blood-red sword runes were constantly attached to the sword, creating mystical bloody rings one after another. Then, accompanied by a terrifying momentum, the godly killing sword trembled continuously. Visible to the naked eye, bloody aura flowed from the two sides of the sword to the gap like a liquid. Then, the gap was repaired perfectly. Buzz! The body of the sword trembled and turned incomparably scarlet. Inside the cave, a terrifying cold blood energy swept out, mincing a large area of space. At this time, Su Yi had completely recovered his consciousness. In his hand, He could feel the might of the blood demon killing god sword sweeping out like a hurricane inside the cave. A fishy wind blew as blood gushed out. At this time, the whole cave seemed to be collapsing. The ground inside the cave spread out like a spiderweb. Outside the cave, a fierce roar resounded. It was the blood-red dragon. Despicable humans. Sure enough, there was a helper. You want to steal my blood sword fruit? Go to hell, all of you. Treacherous and cunning humans. Following that, the energy of the entire world began to stir, and earth-shattering sonic booms could be heard from the outside world. Wave after wave of scorching heat waves surged into the cave, and the already cracked mound was on the verge of collapsing. The demonic dragon has discovered it. It's coming. Su-yi panicked. The iron soulfish didn't panic and said with satisfaction, "It's fine. This place is smoother than I expected. The divine, profound, spiritual veins are great. Kid, when the sword spirit recovers, use your fastest speed to escape. Whether you can survive or not will depend on your legs. Please tell me your plans in advance in the future. Will you die? Will you die?" Su-yi held the heavy sword in his hand, and his hands were already starting to lose strength. The earth-shaking sound waves turned into rainbows and poured into the cave. All of a sudden, the roof of the cave began to collapse. Bang! I'm going to kill all of you. You bunch of despicable humans. I'll bury all of you. If you want me to die, you'll have to consider yourself first. Duamu Xiaoman shouted from outside. Following that, a tsunami-like icy blue energy surged into the sky and collided with the blood-red dragon's scorching aura. The destructive, devouring power entangled with each other, and the entire space seemed to be torn into pieces. Inside the cave, the ground shook and the earth collapsed. Su-yi could hear the sounds of the two fighting. The blood-red demonic dragon was getting closer and closer, and each step was like a collapsing mountain. Because of the blood-red demonic dragon's approach, the cave gradually became scorching hot. In his mind, Su-yi was already prepared to fight to the death. With a thought, he suddenly felt that the heavy sword in his hand was no longer as heavy as before. It was only half as heavy as before. Taking a closer look, the body of the sword was still incomparably black. However, the body of the sword was covered with strange and dazzling blood-red patterns, as if it was carved. At the center of the sword, a small and simple blood-red sword body was taking shape. Just a little bit more. Su-yi knew that the demonic blood god, slaying sword spirit, was about to be reborn. Boom! In midair, huge rocks were constantly falling, and energy gales spread out. It was as if everything in this small space would be destroyed at any moment. A destructive aura flowed into the cave along with the outside world. In a narrow space that was collapsing inch by inch, two types of energy gales, one hot and one cold, swept through. The small pile of dirt was like a bomb that could explode at any moment. Damn demonic dragon, I'll kill you. Su-yi's eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. Su-yi's eyebrows jumped, and his soul fluctuated. Looking at the final blood-red pattern at the center of the sword, the entire demonic blood god, slaying sword, seemed to have opened its eyes. The blood-red light expanded, and a long cry broke out from the pile of dirt, filling the space between heaven and earth. The red light was like a bolt of lightning that shot into the sky, reaching several thousand meters long. Looking at the demonic blood god, slaying sword again, its entire body was sparkling and translucent black. It was deep and simple, and the blood-red patterns carved on it were incomparably bright. Its entire body was emitting a tyrannical and destructive aura. Just at this time, the cave was already like a balloon. The energy of a volcanic eruption began to erupt from Su-yi's body. Su-yi immediately operated the Origin Supreme technique. The aura of the golden dragon, the demonic spirit battle armor, and the diamond body covered his body once again. Bang! In the time it took for a spark to fly off a flint, Su-yi's soul trembled, and a sharp light shot out from his eyes. Abruptly, He dashed out with the soaring hunter transformation steps. Like a fiery butterfly, he followed the direction of the blood-red aura and turned into a scarlet thunderbolt, shooting into the sky and disappearing from sight. In a split second, the blood-red light illuminated the entire space, and the light was mixed with a monstrous, baleful aura. At the same time, the entire space was filled with the sound of wind and thunder. It was as if a formless imprisonment force was soaring into the sky. Demonic dragon die. When the Duanmu Xiaoman saw that Su Yi had disappeared from the sky, her heart was at ease. She instantly decided to launch a fierce attack on the blood-red dragon. The blood-red demonic dragon looked at the dazzling blood-red light that suddenly appeared. At first, it was startled, but in an instant, it rushed into the pile of dirt and started digging through the debris. Suddenly, its gaze changed, and a boundless blood-red aura surged in the sky. Seeing that its beloved blood-sword fruit had disappeared, it instantly became extremely crazy. A powerful and terrifying aura spread out, directly exceeding the imagination of the Duanmu Xiaoman. Chapter 1678. Why did the demonic dragon's aura suddenly become so strong? Duanmu Xiaoman's brows furrowed. After the demonic dragon pounced on the small mound, its aura seemed to have gone berserk. The demonic dragon's half-step heavenly origin realm cultivation wasn't any weaker than hers, but it suddenly became a half-step heavenly origin realm cultivator. The demonic dragon's nostrils emitted a scorching aura. Turning around, Duanmu Xiaoman discovered that the demonic dragon's body was at least twice as large as before. Looking at its mouth, the demonic dragon had actually swallowed the 7 blood-colored rings. His fangs, glinting with cold light, were constantly protruding outwards, and the blood jade scales on his body, which were like armor, were constantly oozing out a terrifying red liquid. When the liquid dripped onto the ground, it instantly turned into a white mist that rose into the air. The temperature was shockingly high. Crunch, crunch! The demonic dragon's eyes, which were as ferocious as the mouth of a volcano, turned around and shot a vicious gaze over. It was like a 10,000-year-old demon that had just awoken from the depths of the earth. At this moment, the demonic dragon started to tremble. Its body emitted cracking sounds, and its scales started to flip over. The flapping scales made the demonic dragon look even more terrifying and even a little disgusting. Accompanied by the continuous breathing from its nostrils, the demonic dragon was like a volcano that was about to erupt. Its huge palms tore apart the remaining blood-colored rings, stuffed them into the air, and crazily absorbed the blood energy within. Bitch, you actually dare to steal my blood sword fruits. I'll make sure you die a horrible death. And that brat just now, all of you die for me. The demonic dragon's eyes flashed with an incomparably vicious expression as it ate. Duanmu Xiaoman's frosty eyes flickered with splendor as she murmured in a low voice. So that kid actually obtained the blood sword fruit. The demonic dragon's soul energy was completely released. Facing such a powerful aura, Duanmu Xiaoman, who was far away, was slightly moved. A trace of excitement appeared in the depths of her soul. In the blink of an eye, the blood-red demonic dragon swallowed all 7 blood rings into its stomach. Suddenly, blood chi surged in the sky. The blood-red shadow behind him had already stretched for hundreds of feet. The blood-red demon dragon was like a blood demon that reached the sky. Its scales stood erect like sharp knives. It was filled with thick blood chi. Hu-chi. Behind the demonic dragon, a pair of blood-red wings spread out with a whoosh. Its aura was monstrous, and the flapping of its wings stirred up a violent gale. The strange blood-red aura began to linger from the dragon's head to the dragon's aura. Wherever the blood-red aura spread, the space collapsed inch by inch. It made one's skin burn for no reason, and one's soul trembled incessantly. It was as if one would be set on fire in the next second. The gigantic blood-red, demonic dragon became even more terrifying and powerful. Duanmu Xiaoman became a tiny white figure in front of it. For no reason, a beam of light also flew out of Duanmu Xiaoman's forehead. Behind her, an icy blue light flashed. The huge aura was like a towering mountain. It coexisted with the demonic dragon's flame aura. It was not any weaker. Female human, I'm going to eat you. I'm going to eat you. Give me back my blood sword fruit. It seems like this demonic dragon is going to fight with its life. Luckily, this brat left first. Duanmu Xiaoman's expression was very serious. She could feel that the blood-red demonic dragon's aura was not any weaker than her. Immediately after, she began to release her soul energy. She raised her hand and prepared to deal with the blood-red demonic dragon's counterattack. Chirp, chirp. The ice phoenix in front of her sensed the change in the atmosphere. At the same time, it also flapped its wings crazily. Its soul energy spread out like a snowstorm. Waves of destructive, icy blue wind and snow rushed into the surroundings, constantly driving away the blood chi that was spreading in all directions. Suddenly, the atmosphere began to tremble violently. Thunder shook the sky, and violent sound waves began to resound from the blood-red, demonic dragon's body. Boom! In a short moment, the wings on the back of the blood-red, demonic dragon continued to speed up. Its feet stepped back deeply. In the next moment, the blood-red, demonic dragon turned into a long and fierce blood shadow. Amidst the monstrous wind, the huge pitch-black void behind it was directly torn apart. Go to hell. Bury all of you here. Become nourishment for my blood dragon god for 10,000 years. The terrifying sound waves resounded throughout the world. Between the red figures, the shocking smell of blood pervaded every nook and cranny of the place. It's coming. Ice Phoenix. Duanmu Xiaoman shouted softly. Instantly, the ice phoenix moved. It flapped its wings, and with a long whistle, it instantly tore the space apart. It turned into a beam of light and flew into Duanmu Xiaoman's forehead. Buzz. As the voice sounded, the soul energy in Duanmu Xiaoman's body surged wildly. Frost covered the sky and covered the earth. The originally pure and holy Duanmu Xiaoman was now like a fairy that had walked out of ice. Ice crystals covered her body. Like fairies, ice crystals danced around Duanmu Xiaoman and instantly formed a bone-chilling ice and snow boundary in front of her. The illusory images overlapped, and the ice phoenix cried. Duanmu Xiaoman, who had merged into one, faced the blood-red, demonic dragon's ferocious attack. The water attribute instantly triggered a majestic ice and snow energy. In one breath, waves of bone-chilling pressure spread out. In an instant, 1,000 miles of ice and snow flew out from Duanmu Xiaoman's brilliance. It was like a snowstorm had fallen from the sky, and the raging blood flames froze in an instant. This was Duanmu Xiaoman's Yuan domain realm technique. A Yuan ancestor realm cultivator could influence the laws of space and form a domain that belonged solely to them. Within the domain, they could do whatever they wanted. At the Yuan domain realm, they would be closer to the Yuan Qi attribute and more familiar with the laws of space. They would be able to comprehend martial techniques that belonged solely to them within the domain. This was the domain technique of a human domain lord. Thousand Frost Divine, Snow Seal, Ice Phoenix Star Shift. Duanmu Xiaoman shouted coldly. The ice and snow seal tore through the space around the blood-red, demonic dragon with lightning speed, and the sound of ice condensing could be heard. Hundreds of ice and snow crystals separated in front of her and rained down on the blood-red, demonic dragon's body. A several hundred-meter-long ice and snow thunderbolt collided with the blood-red, demonic dragon. Bang! The sky was filled with snow, and it was bone-chilling. The moment she made her move, it was obvious that Duanmu Xiaoman had not held back. The ice and snow seal was like a 1,000-year-old ice pool. Before the blood-red demonic dragon could reach it, it had already blocked all its paths. In an instant, the world fell silent. The blood-red broken sword sea turned into a world of ice and silver in an instant. countless tiny icicles stabbed into the crystals like knives. In a short instant, following the appearance of the blood-red demonic dragon, a terrifying frost aura arrived like a shadow. It was as cold as eternal winter, and the world seemed to be on the verge of freezing. The blood-red demonic dragon's huge body instantly froze within the ice barrier that stretched for thousands of meters in front of it. Only its two eyes were left rolling around. Chapter 1679. The temperature in the air that was rising rapidly dropped, and the air that was blowing from tens of thousands of meters above the sea seemed to be filled with endless coldness. This demonic dragon's aura is too powerful. Duanmu Xiaoman slightly restrained her aura, and the ice crystals that were constantly spinning around her were still ready to attack. She didn't dare to be careless at all. Such a demonic dragon that was half a step away from Yuan Tian was extremely powerful, and it definitely wouldn't give up so easily. Creak! From the inside of the ice crystals, from the inside to the outside, layers of terrifying hot energy gradually spread from a light spot to a small whirlwind. Then, it continued to spread in a circular shape, and then spiderweb-like cracks spread all over the ice. Bang! 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 The sound of friction resounded throughout the bottom of the Broken Sword Sea, and in the next moment, an earth-shattering roar came from the ice crystals. Boom! The whole world shook, and the ice crystals were immediately blasted high into the sky like exploding cannonballs. The ice crystals were sent flying, and the world was spinning. Looking from the bottom of the Broken Sword Sea, the ripples were endless, and it was extremely fierce. Then, above the void, a bloody wind blew, and the red light shone brightly. In an instant, the ice-blue world was covered by the blood-red sun again. The terrifying temperature rose again, and it was as if it could set one's soul on fire at any time. Whoosh! Duanmu Xiaoman coldly looked at the changes in front of her. Her eyes flickered, and the fierce soul energy spread out again. Then, she quickly retreated, and when she opened her eyes again, the blood-red demonic dragon was already in front of her. As expected, human female, your cultivation is unstable. This is not the power that you should have. You'd better submit to me obediently. Boom! The blood-red demonic dragon waved its huge dragon claws forward, and instantly countless blood marks gathered around Duanmu Xiaoman like a barrier. Clang! 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 The blood claws filled the sky, shredding layer after layer of ice crystals in front of Duanmu Xiaoman. Little M.O., as if peeling silk from a cocoon, easily peeled off the ice crystals. Duanmu Xiaoman's eyebrows twitched when she heard the blood-colored demonic dragon's words. Then, she said coldly, "Go ahead and try. Even if you die a horrible death, I won't let you live today." As soon as his voice fell, Duanmu Xiaoman's figure instantly froze. Her hand seals quickly condensed, and the blue frost behind her expanded greatly. Thousand Frost, Godly Snow Seal, Ice Lotus Vanishing Shadow. An illusory image of icy petals instantly formed around her, freezing Duanmu Xiaoman's figure in an instant. An icy blue lotus was about to bloom. The divine power was pure and holy, like a blooming snow lotus in the jade Lake Heavenly Palace. In an instant, the Duanmu Xiaoman was drawn in. The ice lotus space was formed, and in an instant, countless petals were like handprints, colliding with the blood-red claws that were madly sweeping in all directions. For a moment, the red and blue light exploded endlessly, and the atmosphere in the space was desolate and fierce. Bang, bang! The incomparably ferocious attacks were accompanied by the rolling soul energy. The entire huge space instantly turned into an ocean of ice and fire. The ice aura was like the falling of the nine heavens. The ice aura in the air was constantly produced, and in the rapid wave of attacks, it was destroyed by the incomparably ferocious blood chi. In the rain of blood, the ice lotus illusory image of the water attribute energy kept exploding. In an instant, It was like hundreds of bombs exploding at the same time, and the sound of thunder resounded in the sky. In less than a few seconds, the originally dry space at the bottom of the Broken Sword Sea began to collapse. The earth shook, and the sea water that surged in from the cracks in the space gushed out like a tsunami, rolling and surging. Mixed with the violent energy ripples, the sky tens of thousands of meters above seemed to have sensed the violence. In an instant, the entire bottom of the sea was distorted, and the huge space between heaven and earth was extremely distorted due to the collision of the two terrifying energies. The space continued to solidify. Duanmu Xiaoman stood in the middle, and dark blood began to seep out of her mouth. She said with a serious expression, "This demonic dragon actually absorbed all the blood chi at the bottom of the Broken Sword Sea." The Ice Lotus illusory image endured the endless attacks, and Duanmu Xiaoman's soul began to feel rapidly uneasy and her heart trembled. Such a terrifying attack could kill her at any time. The blood-colored demonic dragon seemed to have gone crazy. It wantonly attacked the Ice Lotus below it. The fierce attack pulled out 5 deep gullies on the ground, spreading to a very far place. "Do you think you can hide? Come out. Let me devour your energy." The fiery blood dragon's aura kept spewing out, and the entire Ice Lotus began to collapse. The blood dragon that was close to going berserk was no different from Duanmu Xiaoman in terms of strength. In fact, it was even fiercer. "Bastard, go to hell." A gloomy roar sounded from high above. The words were sonorous and powerful, and like a sudden clap of thunder, it instantly stopped the attack of the blood-colored demonic dragon. The person who came was Su Yi, who was holding the blood demon sword. Su Yi's figure flashed. Although he was holding a heavy weapon that did not match, his speed was still unbelievably fast. The heavy sword broke through the air, incomparable. The blood demon killing god sword that cut through the sky quickly stirred up a blazing high temperature. From afar, it looked like a supreme god wearing a flaming robe. Its divine might was impressive, and its domineering and destructive aura could suppress all living things in the world at any time. Boom, boom. When the blood-colored demonic dragon heard the sound and saw that Su Yi had returned, a wave of pressure began to emerge from the bottom of its heart. However, it was more happy. It could not help but be overjoyed. It turned around and roared towards the sky. "Brat, you still dare to come back? Give me back my blood sword fruit." Within the Ice Lotus, Duanmu Xiaoman heard Su Yi's voice, and a look of shock appeared on her face. Her heart trembled, and her mind went blank. That bastard! Idiot! Why did he come back? Biting her lips, the half-step sky origin realm Duanmu Xiaoman revealed an extremely resolute expression. The dazzling ice blue light once again revolved around his body. It was as if a gentle frost energy had formed an air wave that spread throughout the entire Ice Lotus. The entire space of the Ice Lotus instantly twisted like a fried dough twist. Pum! Thousand Frost, Divine Snow Seal, Ice Lotus Shatter. Soul ripples spread out, and as if there was a powerful gravitational force, every single petal began to tremble. Following which, they withered like leaves in autumn, and a whirring sound reminiscent of a tornado could be heard. The Ice Lotus began to explode, and the entire world began to tremble. An oppressive aura spread out, and even one's soul began to tremble. Countless sounds of wind breaking rang out as the entire Ice Lotus slammed into the blood-colored demonic dragon. The blood-colored demonic dragon had not expected Duanmu Xiaoman to use such an extreme method to attack it. It suddenly felt as if its energy was being devoured by heaven and earth. Chapter 1680. A heavenly might suddenly descended upon his body, causing his soul to tremble. By the time he regained his senses, the blood-colored demonic dragon had already been blasted into the distance like a cannonball. As for Su Yi, who was continuously descending, he was also slightly shocked by the sudden bombardment of wind and snow. While he was using the soaring hunter transformation steps, his right hand was instantly grasped by a soft and boneless hand. His body leaped, and he instantly arrived at a high ground nearby. In a moment of desperation, Su-Yi tilted his head and looked at Duanmu Xiaoman with narrowed eyes. His aura was somewhat sluggish, and the fluctuations of his soul were no longer as calm as before. Slap! A swift slap landed on Su-Yi's face. Duanmu Xiaoman's eyes were filled with killing intent as she fiercely said, "Turn around. Don't look at me. You hit me again." Was this woman a violent maniac? Why would she hit me whenever she saw me? Su-Yi couldn't help but feel a ball of fire in his heart. He had rushed down to save Duanmu Xiaoman after completely refining the blood energy of the blood demon killing God sword. Yet she actually hit him. Su-Yi became angrier and angrier the more he thought about it. This kind of woman is very arrogant. Of course, she wouldn't want you to see her in such a sorry state. The iron soulfish raised his eyebrows and saw Su-Yi being hit by this woman again. He felt an indescribable satisfaction in his heart. If he could, he would have already beaten Su-Yi to the point where even his soul wouldn't be left behind. Now he had to worry about him all the time. However, after calming down, Su-Yi could feel that Duanmu Xiaoman's injuries were clearly lighter than before. Without using much strength, Duanmu Xiaoman seemed to have lost her center of gravity. Her right hand, which was resting on Su-Yi's shoulder, began to slide down. She seemed to be extremely weak as she gasped for breath. Su-Yi instantly frowned and said, "You're injured? It's none of your business. You already left. Why did you come back? To die? Yeah. Did you come back to get yourself killed?" The iron soulfish also fanned the flames and took the opportunity to teach him a lesson. "Shut up." Duanmu and the soul puppet beast raised their heads at the same time. Duanmu's eyes flashed with anger and surprise. This was the first time someone dared to speak to him like that. Moreover, it was a little brat. "I don't care. I don't care. You just died, hiding in the ice lotus and waiting for death." Duanmu Xiaoman glared at Su-Yi without saying a word. She stared at Su-Yi as if she wanted to say something. However, she hesitated. Her eyes, which were as deep as an ice pool for thousands of years, suddenly flickered. Su-Yi roared. He summoned all the courage in his body and stared at Duanmu Xiaoman. This was the first time Su-Yi looked at Duanmu Xiaoman. He realized that Duanmu Xiaoman's cold and beautiful face actually flashed with a trace of panic and sadness. A girl like this, who was so cold and aloof, would probably not accept a man's help even if she died. The anger from before began to dissipate. Su-Yi's expression was serious. He said in a low voice, "I don't care what you think. I've done what I promised you. You have to do what you promised me to. Even if you die, you can't wait to die." As soon as he finished speaking, Su-Yi turned around. His ragged robe fluttered in the wind, and his domineering, killing intent was fully displayed. Duanmu Xiaoman, who had always been proud and aloof, looked at the determined Su-Yi. Her thin and frail body suddenly became extremely broad. She was like a god of war. She held a heavy sword in her hand and looked at the blood-red, demonic dragon in the distance that had already stood up from the ruins. "I was wondering why you were so desperate. So it was because you had a little chick protecting you. All of you stay here for me. No one is allowed to leave." The blood-red, demonic dragon's boiling blood floated in the air. It was obvious that it had recovered from the previous riot. Su-Yi, whose back was facing Duanmu Xiaoman, had a serious expression. Duanmu Xiaoman's soft hand on Su-Yi's shoulder trembled slightly. Duanmu Xiaoman said in a low voice, "You are not its opponent. Quickly leave." The corner of Su-Yi's mouth curled up. He did not listen to Duanmu Xiaoman's words at all. A shocking wave of soul energy burst out from his body. He said, "I have already informed the disciples of the Heavenly Soul competition who are still in the competition. Don't worry. Leave the rest to me. Today, both of us have to go out." Boom! The fiery breath was like a violent surge of magma. A large piece of land in front of him was instantly scorched black. The smoke and dust in the air were suffused with white gas. The entire broken sword seabed instantly became incomparably dry and hot. At this moment, the blood demon slaying godsword was in Su Yi's hand. The blood runes on the sword floated, and an extremely demonic crimson light lingered around it. The pitch-black sword instantly reverberated in the air, and a roar like a dragon's roar resounded, shaking one's soul. Killing intent. What a strong killing intent. Duamu Xiaoman looked at Su Yi in front of her. She could feel an indescribable killing intent from Su Yi. It was monstrous and sharp, as if the god of death that suppressed everything in the world had reappeared. Blood demon slaying god. Today, I will slaughter this perverted dragon. Go to hell. Vigorous and boundless energy immediately filled the surroundings. Every corner was filled with Su Yi's endless killing intent. At this moment, Su Yi activated the art of driving the heavens and the heavenly Fey ancient scripture at the same time. With 3 layers of protection on his body, he instantly dashed into the blood mist of the demonic dragon like a phantom. Swish! The sound of silk being torn apart immediately echoed in the air. A large part of the blood mist suddenly dissipated. The huge blood demon slaying godsword was swung across the air and went straight for the demonic dragon's head. Kiki, you think you could do it? You're courting death. The blood-red demonic dragon's gaze was sinister and cold. Duamu Xiaoman's attack just now had obviously caused quite a lot of damage to him, resulting in a lose-lose outcome. However, killing an Origin Emperor was like crushing an ant. This guy has absorbed the energy of the 7 Fiends' blood ring. Go all out, kid. The Iron Soulfish instructed with rapt attention. As soon as his voice fell, countless spatial fragments were instantly lifted up on the vast land. The blood demon slaying God's sword was like a mountain, drawing a strange arc in the air, and crushed the demonic dragon's body. Boom! The blood-red demonic dragon suddenly twisted its body and rushed out with a muddy dragon roar. Rolling thunder with an incomparably ferocious blood, Qi violently pounced on Su Yi. Origin Emperor Bug. I can kill you as easily as crushing an ant. Swish! Wherever the huge, blood-red, demonic dragon passed, the surrounding space was shattered. A huge blood-red scar was formed in the middle. After the scar dissipated, there was a heavy bang in the air. The incomparably tiny body of Su Yi instantly crashed into the cracked ground like a cannonball. A huge pit appeared in the pitch-black pit. Before he could turn around, Su Yi immediately rushed into the sky like a ball of flame and landed heavily on the ground. After landing, Su Yi's demonic god battle armor was on the verge of shattering. The battle armor that was suffused with a strange light danced in the wind, and there was a faint golden dragon aura on it. Chapter 1681. As soon as Su Yi regained his footing, he spat out a mouthful of blood. His right foot kicked backward, barely managing to stabilize his body. At this moment, Su Yi could feel the blood in his body surging up due to the impact just now. His meridians also felt like they were being torn apart due to the violent impact. His bones, flesh, and meridians felt like they were being torn apart. The subtle and violent tearing sensation made Su Yi's expression change. However, because of the intense pain, Su Yi's battle intent and blood qi reached their peak. He slowly wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. The corners of his mouth curled up as he looked at the ferocious, demonic dragon in the distance. His eyes shone brightly. Kid, the blood demon killing god sword spirit has just been formed. It's difficult for it to display its full killing intent. This alone won't do. The Iron Soulfish said. Su Yi had already thought of other trump cards. Now that Su Yi had the primordial yang, heavenly dragon bone, and diamond body, the killing intent of the blood demon killing god sword had already formed a spirit. It wouldn't be as easy for him to explode like before. However, the mysterious ball of light in his body was different. The mystical energy of heaven and earth could cause him to lose control at any time if he wasn't careful. Are you sure you want to use that energy? Su Yi pondered. If he didn't control it well, he would definitely die before he could kill the demonic dragon. Su-yi decided not to gamble for now. He wouldn't use the mysterious ball of light unless it was absolutely necessary. In the next moment, Su-yi grasped the heavy sword with both hands. His deep eyes were filled with unparalleled determination. A monstrous rage and battle intent wantonly surged out. He began to circulate the Origin Supreme technique around his body. Under the extreme state of the Origin Supreme technique, a heavenly might suddenly and silently seeped out, as if it had come from the ancient times. The entire broken sword seabed inexplicably trembled. At the same time, the sand and earth shook at the same time. An unparalleled soul pressure seeped out from Su-yi's soul and blood. Duanmu Xiaoman, who was about to step forward, instantly stopped. Her eyes were filled with shock as she thought to herself, "This kid's aura is so strong." At the same time, the crimson demonic dragon's expression also abruptly changed due to the terrifying suppression of heaven and earth. His soul began to tremble involuntarily, and he could clearly feel that the surrounding space was beginning to solidify for no reason, like a twisted fried dough twist. Compared to the thousand frost and godly snow seal from before, Su-yi's pressure was even more majestic, causing his huge body to stagnate and tremble slightly. "Brat, looks like I've underestimated you. Whatever skills you have, use them all. This will be your last chance." Demonic chi spread out from the dragon's body, and the surging blood will instantly washed away the fear in its heart. It twisted its body, and its huge, blood-red body stood between the heaven and earth like an ancient castle. The thin and weak Su-yi's eyes flashed with a bright light. His robes fluttered. Facing the tyrannical, blood-red, demonic dragon, Su-yi's heart instantly became as calm as water, without a trace of hesitation. Raising his heavy sword into the air, he pointed it at the sky and said, "Half-step demonic celestial is indeed the strongest existence I have ever seen. However, this is not the barbaric demon forest. So what if you're a demon? You're born from the blood sword fruit. No matter how strong you are, you're just a pile of flesh and blood. If you're a dragon, I'll pull out your tendons and skin you. If you're a worm, I'll beat you until your parents won't recognize you. If you're a demon, you'll have to listen to me." As soon as he finished speaking, Su-yi's slanted lips suddenly became domineering. He forcefully activated the Origin Supreme technique, and it was as if an ancient power that transcended heaven and earth had descended upon Senior Sister. He brandished his heavy sword, and the blood chi immediately separated to the two sides. The heavy sword pointed at the blood-red demonic dragon's location, and his eyes narrowed as he shouted in the air. Immediately, the peerless dragon flash's speed was pushed to the extreme, and Su-yi turned into a fiery red afterimage, streaking across the sky like a ball of demonic fiery light. Rumble. This aura, Duanmu Xiaoman and the blood-red dragon were shocked at the same time. At this moment, due to the intersection of the water vapor and flames, the space was already inexplicably trembling. In the sky above, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled, and boundless domineering heavenly might suddenly arrived. The blood-red demonic dragon seemed to have sensed something, and its ferocious eyes widened, revealing a fearful gaze. At the location of the fluctuation, the shadow behind Su-yi gradually condensed, and a divine bird spread its wings proudly, with heavenly flames surging in its eyes, as if it was a supreme god that was suppressing and looking down on the world. G. The space trembled, and the clouds moved. The entire sky became strange and turbulent because of the appearance of the Emperor Sparrow shadow. The raging winds and huge waves collapsed inch by inch, and an extremely terrifying, domineering aura suppressed the entire place, causing every corner and ground to tremble. Emperor Sparrow. He actually obtained the Emperor Sparrow's inheritance. At this moment, the slightly weakened Duanmu Xiaoman's eyes were filled with astonishment. Su-yi, who was in the Origin Emperor realm, actually had such a surging Emperor Sparrow's aura. Su-yi, who was in front of her, was like the ruler of heaven and earth. His long robe was extremely domineering, as if he was the strongest existence in heaven and earth. Such an aura caused the blood-red demonic dragon's heart to palpitate. At the same time, the blood-red demonic dragon's pupils contracted, and it frantically spurted out blood aura. Its eyes were filled with disbelief, despair, fear, and endless shock. It frantically slapped the blood aura waves in front of it, obstructing Su Yi's advance. An ant dares to be so arrogant in front of me. Go and die. In an instant, Su Yi was only a few hundred meters away from the blood-red demonic dragon. Boundless killing intent surged in his eyes, and in his palm, the heavy sword shot out like a cannonball, and a monstrous killing intent engulfed the entire sky. Gee! The old and vigorous Emperor Sparrow's cry resounded through the sky, and its eyes shot out radiance. Suddenly, an unparalleled flame surged out, and the divine fire engulfed the entire place. The scorching hot soul pressure was vast and mighty. Blood phoenix, sky, splitting slash. A bone-chilling voice rang out faintly, and in the midst of the raging blood aura, the phoenix appeared brazenly with the blood demon killing God's sword in its mouth. Suddenly, the entire space became even hotter, and countless scarlet gold flames spilled out from the void. In the distance, Su Yi's body was covered in scarlet gold fire clouds, and the area within a few hundred meters was filled with boundless light. Buzz! As the piercing cry resounded through the sky, the blood demon killing Godsword's body was covered in scarlet-red flames. A terrifying aura instantly drilled into the sword, and the peerless power became even more ferocious. Instantly, a fiery red aura surrounded the blood-red patterns. Su Yi condensed his hand seals and said coldly as he looked at the blood-red demonic dragon, "Go and die." A terrifying power swept through the world, and immediately the blood-red demonic dragon couldn't help but feel frightened. It continuously shot out blood aura tongues, forming an extremely thick blood aura wall in front of it. Bang, bang! Under the Emperor Sparrow's shadow, the blood demon killing God's sword continuously pierced through the blood wall and charged straight at the blood-red demonic dragon. Such a heavy pressure was enough to burn and destroy everything. Boom! Continuous sonic booms rang out, and within the blood aura flames that filled the sky, the domineering and terrifying auras collided with each other. Su Yi retreated a few hundred meters, and the blood-red demonic dragon crashed into the high ground behind it, creating a huge bottomless pit. Chapter 1682. Such a brutal method of suppression instantly caused the space in front of Su Yi to become extremely distorted. The wind and clouds in the sky surged, and countless lightning arcs revolved around. The cold, evil chi and residual energy came from all directions. The wails and howls of ghosts were extremely terrifying. As the wind and clouds changed color, a monstrous gust of wind swept across the sky. The surging energy was like a tidal wave, and in the blink of an eye, the entire space was torn into pieces. It was soul-shaking. "Sui," Duanmu Xiaoman exclaimed softly. Duanmu Xiaoman recovered from the shock just now. She did not care about the terrifying shock waves and turned her body slightly. She flew forward and gently caught Su Yi, who was flying backwards. Bang, bang, bang. After catching Duanmu Xiaoman, she said in her heart, "Not good." Su Yi's huge retreating force caused Duanmu Xiaoman to retreat a few hundred meters. The terrifying movement covered the sky and the sun, and the two could not help but be tightly attached to each other. In a moment of desperation, Duanmu Xiaoman continuously formed hand signs. The illusion of the Ice Luan and the Emperor Sparrow overlapped each other behind her, and directly pulled out a huge gap below her. Wherever the gap passed, the space trembled inexplicably. In the sky, suddenly, lightning flashed and thunder roared, and the might of the heavens rolled. At this moment, Su Yi was also being eroded by the huge force. Together with Duanmu Xiaoman, He quickly circulated his vital qi in his body and tried his best to stop himself. Bang! When the huge force dissipated, the two of them lost their center of gravity and fell to the ground. In the distorted space, the two of them overlapped together and hugged each other tightly on the ground. Immediately, Duanmu Xiaoman, who was surrounded by the hot body, was startled. Her eyes were filled with astonishment, and she let out a moan. Su Yi, who was boiling hot, had used up all of his energy to execute the Blood Phoenix sky-splitting slash. At this moment, the great void divine sea in his body was extremely dry. The divine, profound spiritual meridians were filled with countless small wounds, which were like knife wounds. Under the circulation of his vital qi, it was extremely painful. Su Yi, who had lost all of his strength, laid on top of Duanmu Xiaoman's body. He breathed heavily beside her ear to relieve the force just now. Because of the pain, Su Yi's eyebrows were tightly knitted together, and he could not say a word. "Are you done?" Duanmu Xiaoman's moon-like eyes darted around as she asked coldly. Her voice was clearly trembling. The murderous intent in the air was boiling, and a bone-chilling voice was faintly heard. At the same time, the firestone fragments that filled the sky embellished the whole world, making it seem like a dark and terrifying world. At this time, Su Yi had slightly recovered his strength. His heart suddenly thumped. His hands pressed against the ground, and the moment his veins popped, a slight roar from his throat was especially ear-piercing in the strong wind. Su Yi, who was lying beside Duanmu Xiaoman, looked at the sparkling sea of broken swords. For the first time, Su Yi wanted to leave the sea of broken swords as soon as possible. "I'm sorry, Palace Master Duanmu." Su Yi apologized for what happened just now. Things had come to this, and it was not what he wanted. If he had really offended her, Su Yi could only accept it. Duanmu Xiaoman, who was lying beside him, blushed for the first time. Her eyes were full of seriousness. The entire sea of broken swords was filled with a dense, evil aura. It was pervasive and directly affected the soul. Faintly, a sound like a ghost cry echoed in the canyon, and it made one's hair stand on end. Your move just now was too risky. Although it was powerful, it also put you in danger. Duanmu Xiaoman reprimanded softly. "If it doesn't die, both of us will die." Su Yi laughed bitterly. Duanmu Xiaoman stood up, and the ice crystals around her condensed again. In an instant, the dust on her body dissipated, and she looked very natural. As she waved her sleeves, a string of ribbons surrounded Su Yi's body. In an instant, Su Yi felt the ribbons of vital qi surge to the extreme and rushed into the great void spirit sea. "He's not dead yet. You can rest here." Whoosh! Duanmu Xiaoman, whose face was slightly pale, looked determined. She floated forward for more than 100 meters and stared into the distance. At this moment, there was a sudden fluctuation in the black hole. Within the spatial ripples, waves of aura spread out. In a short moment, a blood-red light broke out from the spatial ripples. "He's not dead yet." Su Yi's eyes flashed with a hint of surprise. There was a huge bloody hole in the crimson demon dragon's chest. It reeked of blood, and both of its huge arms were broken. Its entire body was swaying, but there was a murderous aura around it that was even more terrifying than before. The terrifying aura suddenly surged out, like the roar of hell from the depths of the earth. "Humans, you can actually beat me to this extent. I want you to pay with your blood." The crimson demon dragon roared like thunder, like a demon from the 9 heavens. The anger in its eyes was evil and chilling, and it carried with it a murderous aura that could devour everything. Under the ghastly cries and howls, the crimson demon dragon stood in the distance, and its vital qi surged like a dazzling stream of light. In an instant, it destroyed a large part of the space in front of it. At this moment, Su Yi ignored the pain in his body and quickly stood up. Duanmu Xiaoman's silk flowed in front of him like a divine light. His face was much rosier, and his vital qi and blood had stabilized. Su Yi stomped the ground, gritted his teeth, and rushed out to stand beside Duanmu Xiaoman. No matter what, Su-Yi would not let a woman stand in front of him in such a situation. This should be the demon dragon's last attack. Boy, have you made up your mind? The soul puppet beast's voice was low, and its eyes revealed a rare, murderous aura. In the distance, under the crimson demon dragon's scorching aura, the evil aura was even stronger than before. The circle of blood-red marks in the air had turned dark purple due to its extreme anger, and the murderous aura was collapsing. Su-Yi took a deep breath and looked up at the crimson demon dragon that was about to pounce on him. Its body had turned from red to black, and it emitted a pungent smell. Its eyes were blood-red, and it was strange and evil. Let's go together. Duanmu Xiaoman's body moved slightly as she glanced at Su-Yi. Her eyes were filled with shock, worry, and a trace of pleasant surprise. She then said with a serious expression, "The only way now is to lend me the energy of the crimson aqua heavenly crystal in your body." Duanmu Xiaoman's words were firm, and her soft voice contained the calmness and indifference of a crisis. What else can we do? Su-Yi knew that Duanmu Xiaoman already knew his secret, but he did not want to rely only on Duanmu Xiaoman's strength. Duanmu Xiaoman's gaze remained serious, and her lips curled. This demon dragon will not give up easily. If we continue to waste time, both of us will die here today. If you have a way, help me delay it for a while. I will kill it in the shortest time possible. Chapter 1683. The eerie atmosphere in front of them made it seem as if the end of the world had arrived. Black demonic energy swirled around the blood-red demonic dragon like a tornado, filling the entire space with an evil and ferocious aura. At such a critical moment, Su-Yi listened to Duanmu Xiaoman's words. A thought flashed through his mind, and his brows furrowed. All right, there's no other way. It seems like some things are futile no matter how hard you try, Su-Yi said in a low voice. In the distance, the demonic dragon's demonic energy was soaring into the sky. In the boiling atmosphere, the blood-red demonic energy was like a blooming flower that seeped into the souls of Su-Yi and Duanmu Xiaoman. If it weren't for the quality of his soul, Su-Yi would have been reduced to a speck of residue in the demonic energy. Kid, have you thought of a way to stall the demonic dragon? The iron soulfish was curious. Su-Yi's primordial qi had yet to recover. What could Su-Yi do to stall the demonic dragon that was about to go berserk? The iron soulfish was looking forward to it. Huff! Su-Yi raised his eyebrows and said in a low voice, "This is my first time using it. If it doesn't work, I'm afraid I'll have to use that power. I'll apologize to Mu Yang later." Su-Yi raised his eyebrows, and his eyes regained their sharpness. He secretly performed the art of heavenly control with both hands, and the Origin Supreme technique was unleashed once again. The great void spirit sea that had yet to fully recover was like a wooden bucket that had been emptied, with only a small bottle of sweet spring water remaining. As the art of heavenly control was activated, Su-Yi spread his soul energy to every corner of his body. His eyes regained their sharpness, and his green robe fluttered in the wind. He was determined to kill. Roar! A deep roar could be heard. The blood-red, demonic dragon that had emerged from the deep hole in the distance immediately prostrated itself on the ground. Its huge eyes were blood-red, and its long, bloody tongue was dragging on the ground. In the blink of an eye, the scorching temperature had caused a long crack to appear on the ground in front of him. It was a ghastly sight and extremely terrifying. The demonic dragon's eyes were fierce and ferocious. In an instant, a tyrannical demonic energy surged. The blade-like scales on its body were like blades, and countless blood-red rays shot out toward Duanmu Xiaoman and Su-Yi. Bang! In an instant, the sky was filled with blood arrows. As they tore through the air, they were filled with an obscure and gloomy aura. A terrifying aura filled the air, and the entire space was torn into pieces. Murderous spirits filled the sky, and blood arrows rumbled. The attack The void was like a balloon that had been condensed to the extreme. It was instantly punctured by the explosion. Countless long tongues of flame hovered in the air. In the world of blood and fire, the aura of the blood-red demonic dragon soared to the peak. The sharp blood chi instantly flashed and shot towards Su, Yi, and Duanmu Xiaoman. The blood-red demonic dragon is going berserk. Su, Yi, and Duanmu Xiaoman frowned at the same time. Although the blood-red demonic dragon had swallowed the 7 Malice Blood Ring, and its aura was comparable to that of a half-step Yuan Tian stage cultivator. After it went berserk, its aura had already surpassed that of a half-step Yuan Tian stage cultivator. Even Duanmu Xiaoman's face began to become serious. Buzz! The moment the blood-red demonic dragon soared into the sky, Duanmu Xiaoman lightly pointed at the air. A white light flashed in the air. Duanmu Xiaoman, who was like a fairy descending to the mortal world, shot out 2 beams of light in succession. Then 2 lotuses flashed around her body again. She rushed straight toward the blood-red demonic dragon. Without any hesitation, Su Yi also raised his speed to the extreme. A fiery red vortex rose under his feet. A blur flashed past, and he followed closely behind Duanmu Xiaoman. Attack! Su Yi shouted, and countless blood arrows flew past him. The entire broken sword seabed shook, cracks spread, and collapsed land flew everywhere. Su Yi knew that if he let the blood-red demonic dragon continue to attack, the entire broken sword seabed would collapse. At that time, both sides would suffer great losses, and everyone would be buried at the bottom of the sea. In an instant, he rushed to the blood-red demonic dragon. Su Yi's eyes became serious, and he said angrily in his heart, "You are a dragon, right? I will beat you until you are like a worm." Then, Su Yi's white flood dragon god's power quickly revolved. Under the unparalleled dragon flash, for soul shadows covered the sky and covered the earth. They quickly revolved around the blood-red demonic dragon, like a crimson ring of fire in the air. In an instant, in the extremely dried-up blood-red sky, the trembling waves were like the wind. One after another, they crashed into the blood-red demonic dragon. At this time, Su Yi's speed had reached an unimaginable level. The white flood dragon god's power combined with the rising Yao's 100 transformation steps caused the winds in the sky to spin high. The blood-red demonic dragon that was fighting with Duanmu Xiaoman just a moment ago was constantly roaring. Its roar shook the sky, and a tyrannical demonic aura constantly attacked the surrounding area. It could see Su Yi, but it couldn't catch Su Yi's shadow. This made the blood-red demonic dragon very anxious. It constantly shook the sky and earth and collapsed in all directions. Boom, boom, boom. The blood-red demonic dragon's body constantly twisted. Its 2 remaining giant claws crazily slammed the ground, and its mouth constantly spat out waves of blood-red light. It was as if it had the power of destruction, attacking the broken sword at the bottom of the sea. This brat's speed is really shocking. It's still not enough. If only he could restrict the blood-red demonic dragon. Duanmu Xiaoman's eyes were slightly surprised. As soon as her voice fell, Duanmu Xiaoman seized the opportunity and continuously slammed the energy in her hands onto the demonic dragon's body. At this time, the demonic dragon was already a walking corpse without consciousness. It brutally crashed into the surroundings. It was helpless against Su Yi's rotation, but others could do nothing about it. It didn't have any fat hair, and under the extremely thick blood energy, its body constantly smashed into the ground. The ground had already begun to tremble and rumble incessantly. "Duanmu, back off." When Su Yi saw that the demonic dragon was already out of order, he instantly gritted his teeth and shouted, indicating for Duanmu Xiaoman to back off quickly. As soon as his voice fell, Duanmu floated away. Su Yi stepped on the void, and his hand seals were constantly forming. The mysterious and complicated runic light lingered around his body, and in an instant, a unique gust of wind blew. Duanmu looked at Su Yi and revealed a faint, arrogant smile. The vast and terrifying aura around his body covered the sky and earth, and he suddenly felt a slight pressure in his heart. This brat, his essence force has not recovered by more than half. Is he going to use his soul spirit to activate and forcefully suppress the demonic dragon? Duanmu Xiaoman's expression began to change slightly as she muttered softly. Palace Master Duanmu, I will delay it later. Hurry up! Su Yi shouted wildly. In the next moment, the illusory shadows behind Su Yi overlapped. In an instant, an awe-inspiring pressure dominated the heaven and earth. A gust of wind whistled behind him, and the pressure and vast aura that seemed to have transcended the ages rushed toward Su Yi. In an instant, Su Yi's expression changed. The air currents surged and swirled in the sky. Walala! The wind attribute energy rushed out from Su Yi's Dantian's essence force whirlpool, and Su Yi's entire body shone brightly. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.